Hey guys, Justin here. Just got to the parking lot in advance of a winter camping trip. So I'm gonna be doing a trip up to a lake today, and it's gonna be a little bit different, a little bit interesting. We're supposed to be getting a foot or more of snow tonight, and as you can see, it's already starting to snow, and that forecast seems pretty accurate. I'm pretty confident that we're gonna be getting quite a bit of snow. So I'm really excited for the trip. Should be super fun. A lot of snow coming, which is gonna make camp really interesting. There's a few things at camp that you have to do when you're gonna be getting a foot of snow in order to prepare for that. So we're gonna go over that once we get up there. The other thing is that I'm using a pretty unique way to travel on the trail. And if you don't live in the mountains, aren't familiar with mountain travel, then you may have never seen this before. And I'm really excited to take you guys on the journey, especially tomorrow morning when we wake up and hopefully have a foot of snow covering the tent. That's gonna be a really neat and fun experience. So we're in a winter wonderland. Look at this. I love this kind of area. Snow on the trees, snow on the ground, snow slowly falling out of the sky. Winter activities, winter camping, pretty phenomenal, pretty beautiful. But I promised you guys that I would talk about how I'm traveling. So I'm not snowshoeing, I'm not hiking, I'm not even cross-country skiing. What I'm doing is I'm using alpine touring boots, bindings, and skis. So this is the same kind of setup that I would use for backcountry skiing in order to get up the mountain. So how it works is that you have a binding, and there's two parts to it. There's a toe piece that has two pins that when you step into the pins with your boot has two slots in it that those pins go into. And then what that does is it creates a pivot point so that when you're going on flat ground like now, you can walk and your toe is able to pivot, kind of like if you're on cross-country skis. And that brings you probably to the question of, okay, so how do you get traction on the snow if you're going up a hill? And in order to do that, you install what are called skins on the bottom of your skis. So it's a piece of material that on one side is sticky, so it sticks to the bottom of your ski. And then on the other side, it's little hairs that only go in one direction, so that when you slide the ski forward, you glide. And then when you're needing to get grip, those hairs give you grip so you don't slide backwards. So really cool system. We're gonna skin forward and get through this nice, beautiful forest here. Hi. So I just got passed by some skiers going in the opposite direction. Same kind of setup that I'm on. And that's what I'm really kind of looking forward to tomorrow. And one of the other reasons why I chose this setup versus hiking your snowshoes is that it's all downhill from the lake to the parking lot. So I'll be able to just ski the entire way. And instead of it taking a couple hours to get back, it'll take me, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes. That's hard work. I'm sweatier than the guys on Tayshia's season of The Bachelorette during hometowns. So we're about halfway. Definitely some hard work. We're going uphill the entire time. But as you can see, there's starting to be quite a bit of snow. So we're gonna be at about elevation of the ski hill, and the ski hill has reported that they've gotten 2.5 meters of snow so far this year, and their base is about 1 meter. So that's 1 meter of consolidated snow, or about 3 feet. We don't quite have that here, but we also have another 500 meters of elevation gain before we get to the campsite. I am super curious to see what the conditions are like at the campsite. There's some things that you need to do when camping on top of really deep snow that are a little bit different than if the snow is really thin or if you're camping in conditions where the ground is bare. And we're gonna go over all that stuff at camp. I'm gonna show you some tips, some tricks, and what I do to set up camp in really deep snowy conditions like this. So I made it to the campground, Taylor Lake. Bit of snow here. You can see these are the tables that are used in the summertime. And that's the top of the table. So we're about 1 meter deep here with packed down snow. And that trip took me about 2 hours to cover 6 kilometers. So about 3 kilometers an hour. Not super fast, but faster than if I was on snowshoes or probably in hiking boots. What I'm curious to see is how fast I go down skiing. I'm gonna time that trip, and I'll let you guys know tomorrow once I get back to the car how much faster it was skiing down this trail than skinning up it with my touring skis. I'm gonna go set up camp. There's some things that I do differently, quite a bit differently in the wintertime compared to summertime when I'm preparing my campsite and then setting up the tent. So I'm gonna show you guys all of that in a second here. This looks like a good spot right behind me here. And what I like to do in the winter time is stomp out my campsite. Some people would dig down using a shovel down to ground and then set up on that. I prefer setting up on top of the snow by just flattening out and compressing the snow. And I'll show you guys how to do that. And there's a few different reasons why I like to stomp out a tent pad as opposed to digging down to ground. And the first reason is that it's just so much easier. Instead of having to dig 1 meter down like I would right now, I can just stomp out the tent pad pretty quickly. If you have skis or snowshoes or your boots, just walk over the area that you think you'll need to set up your tent and guy lines continuously until it gets nice and compacted, and then leave it for 15, 20 minutes. If it's quite warm, you can leave it for less, and then it should be nice and hard and provide a really good surface to set your tent up on. The other reasons why I prefer to stomp out a tent pad and set my tent up on that is, one is safety. If you are digging down 1 meter and setting up your tent in that pit and you get a foot of snow like we're gonna get tonight, you can get buried. Another reason is protecting the vegetation. I'm in a pretty sensitive alpine environment right now, and I don't want to be digging down and setting up on sensitive vegetation, impacting that when it's in a sensitive state like at wintertime. I'd rather set up on snow and have that buffer between me and the ground. As well, if you stomp out a tent pad, you don't need to worry about how uneven the ground is or whether there's a bunch of pokey things underneath you. You just stomp it out, it gets flat on its own, and then you're all set and you can set your tent up. I'm gonna set up my tent now. I brought the Nemo Tenchi 2P tent. It's a tent that's really good in wintertime. There's a couple features that it has that makes it optimal for conditions like we're about to experience, where you're getting a whole bunch of snow overnight, and I'll show you those features once I get the tent all set up. So Nemo Tenchi, this is a mountaineering specific tent, so it's made for these kind of conditions. I'm at 2,000 meters elevation right now, so I am getting up into the alpine, more mountainous terrain, and I might be able to show you some views in a second here. You can see the mountain maybe peeking through back there, and then there's Taylor Lake. Kind of just looks like a snowy meadow. But the features that the Nemo Tenchi has that makes it great for wintertime is, first of all, and most important, is that it's really steep side walls. So with those steep side walls, you're not gonna have snow accumulating on top of them and then putting load on the tent. Snow, dry snow, weighs up to 10 pounds per square foot, and then wet snow can weigh up to 30 pounds per square foot. So you can get a lot of snow load on a tent if you don't have a tent that's made to shed snow really easily. The Tenchi has those steep sidewalls, but it also has really good guy out points that I'm gonna install in a second here that pulls those sides out and helps shed snow even better, as well as helps it when it's really windy out. Another thing that the Tenchi has that's awesome is this vestibule. This vestibule out front is really good in the wintertime. You can store all your gear in there, as well as, if need be, cook if you're in a really big blizzard. This tent has been awesome for me. I love this tent. If you're interested in any of the gear that I was wearing today or have been using, I'll post a link in the video description where you can go check any of that gear out, as well as a full list of what it was. And to get there, you just click the little arrow that's to the right of the video title. I'm gonna get the rest of my pack unloaded into the tent, cook dinner. I'm really excited to show you guys tomorrow morning how much snow falls. It's dumping right now. You can see I just set up the tent and you can see how much accumulation there's been. And it's supposed to only increase over the course of the night. Here's the snow skirt in action, as well as the guy outline. So I got some snow in the pot here. Little thing that you should do if you are trying to melt snow is add a little bit of water to the pot. Water conducts heat a lot better than snow. So just a little bit of water is going to help that snow melt a lot quicker. And then I'm using the MSR Ultralight Universal here in order to melt the snow. This is a great stove. It's a canister stove, but it's inverted and then has a heating coil. So makes it operate really well during cold temperatures, and it's getting down to below -5 now. I think it's down to -8 or 9. So having this kind of stove is essential under these kind of circumstances. So this is how much snow has fallen in the hour or so that I took to eat dinner and get dinner ready. You can see there's probably a good inch and a half, maybe 2 inches accumulated on the tent so far. If this keeps up, I'm gonna be buried tomorrow. And it's supposed to. This is just the beginning of how heavy the snowfall is supposed to be. And then over there we got my pee stump. Hopefully I don't need to use that too much tonight. I forgot my pee bottle, which is unfortunate. So yeah, I'm gonna hop on in, gonna have a good sleep. Got a big day tomorrow, and I'm really excited to see what I'm gonna wake up to. All tucked into bed. See you guys in the morning. Good morning, guys. Another good backcountry winter camping sleep. That was really good sleep. Probably got down to -10 degrees Celsius last night, so nice and toasty warm, especially in this sleeping bag. This sleeping bag's almost too warm for that temperature. I'm gonna get everything packed up in the tent, and then we'll head outside and check out what the conditions are like. So this is the tent this morning. We got a bit of snow last night. Holy moly. A lot of it shed right off the tent. It's holding up pretty good. That's a lot of weight right on that vestibule especially. Looks like a bunch of the snow from the roof fell off when I was getting everything packed up this morning. But you can see tent's well buried. And then if we move over to the picnic table, so this is the picnic table that I was eating dinner on last night. I completely cleared that picnic table off, and now it's buried. Let's go see maybe how much snow is on here. Wow, look at that. That's how much snow fell. So definitely got that foot of snow about, or a little bit more. It's still dark out, middle of December, so the sun doesn't rise till quite late. But I'm gonna get everything finished packing up, and then we're gonna get all set to ski back down that trail. Should be a nice little ski with all the snow that we got. So the sun's starting to come out. May not seem that bright on the video, but I'm about to click into my skis here, ski down to the parking lot, and then let you know how fast it is relative to the 2-hour trek up. Woo! Made it back to the car, just under an hour, so quite a bit faster than heading up. That's it for the trip. If you guys are interested in my winter camping gear list, I'll post a video of that right up there. And if you're interested in any videos about me skiing, go check out my Instagram channel, Just Outdoors. I got boxed in by the plow, a bit of a snowdrift here. I have all-wheel drive and good wear tires, so I'm gonna try and maybe punch it out over that way. So, should be fine. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. Hey guys, Justin here, coming at you with another winter camping trip. I'm really excited for this one. It's the first trip that I'm showing you guys where I'm using snowshoes, and that's because I'm gonna be heading up to Twin Lakes Campground, which is up that hill over there. It's 7 kilometers to the campground, 700 meters of elevation gain. So I think snowshoes are gonna be a really good option for this trip. I'm starting this trip a little bit earlier because it gets dark so early in the wintertime. I wanna get to camp and be able to share my camp routine with you guys. What I do to pick my campsite, set up my tent, as well as go through my cook system, gather water, and all those things. I've seen some really awesome pictures of this campsite. I've never been there before, but it looks beautiful. So I'm excited to share the trip with you guys, share some awesome views, as well as some tips and tricks for winter camping. This is a really sketchy spot. Big cliff band right below me. This is all wind affected, super hard. So that's why I'm kicking out a path for my snowshoes, because this is definitely sketchy. That's steep. Time to take a little break, have a snack, enjoy these views. This trail is actually pretty good for views. One of my favorite snacks in the wintertime, sesame snaps. Super good. Super important to stay hydrated in the wintertime. It's really easy to get dehydrated. I see people getting dehydrated all the time when they're on winter trips. That's why it's super important when we get to camp to talk about how to get water effectively and efficiently when you're on winter trips. It always blows my mind when you're traveling in the winter how quickly you can move through the mountains. So you can see the highway right there, right on the shadow basically, that I came in on, parked over there, came down, dropped into that valley where there's a lake, and then have come up this ridge. So you can cover distance pretty quickly. And this is a steep approach. And there we have the legendary Castle Mountain. Beautiful, beautiful spot. This trail is awesome. The last little bit has been brutal. A lot of people stop at that lake that we just passed, and because of that, I've been breaking trail. There's really no trail, so I'm just trying to navigate as best I can through pretty deep snow. If I go off to the wrong spot a little bit, it can be waist deep in snow, even with snowshoes. So we're at the campground, made it to the lower Twin Lake campground. So that's the lake right back there. Just looks like a snowy field right now. But that was a tough slog. That last 2 kilometers, I was breaking trail through really deep snow. There was no established trail. That was some of the harder work that I've put in this winter. But I made it with quite a bit of daylight left. Even when I'm not filming, I'll ensure that I get to camp with quite a bit of daylight so that I have light in order to set up my tent. There's nothing worse than setting your tent up in the dark. And then the first thing I do when I get to camp is I send a message to my check-in person, just letting them know on my inReach device here that I made it to camp nice and safe. The next step is to get camp all set up, and there's a lot of things I do quite a bit differently in the wintertime compared to summertime. The first thing is campsite selection. So I'm gonna go take a walk through the campground here, and we'll talk about what I look for when picking a spot for my tent pad, as well as getting the camp all set up so it's nice and comfy for the evening. So we're in the cooking area. You can see the bear lockers right back there. Look at that mushroom of snow on top. That's crazy. And then this is the table that I'm gonna probably dig out just so I can have a nice place to cook and eat my dinner. The other thing that I need to think about is where am I gonna set up my tent? And I usually like to set up near the amenities, near where the picnic table is, not too far. And it looks like this is a good spot. There's some nice views over there. But other than the amenities, there's a couple other things I take into consideration when picking where I'm gonna set up my tent. The first thing being protection from wind. I don't wanna be in some big open area where wind gusts are gonna be pounding my tent all night. I do have a really good mountaineering tent, but I just don't wanna deal with that. I don't have to be getting up in the middle of the night and re-guying out different parts of my tent so it doesn't blow over. And this area right behind me, right over there, looks like an awesome spot, sheltered from the wind. It is actually quite windy out there. I felt it over the course of the hike, but this is a very nice sheltered spot. Another thing is tree bombs. So a tree bomb is a bunch of snow that builds up in a bough of a tree, and those get really hard and become like bombs. They're actually really heavy, really dense, and if one of those falls on your tent, it's gonna give you a rude awakening, probably demolish your tent. And I think we got a great area right in there. That's where I'm gonna set up my tent. And now that we've picked out where we're gonna set the tent up, time to get to work. And if you're new to winter camping, you may wonder how you set a tent up on snow. Do you just sink in? Do you just throw it up and hope for the best? There are some tips and tricks in order to do it effectively. And the first thing involves packing down all the snow where you're gonna set your tent up. And to do that, you just walk in a circle over and over again, pack that snow down, and then the key is that you leave it for at least 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, that snow is gonna harden right up and you're gonna have a great platform to set your tent up on. The key is to make sure that you stomp out a big enough area to accommodate your tent as well as any of your guy out points. So that's why it's so big right here. I'd rather make a bigger tent pad than a smaller one. You also need to make sure that you're leaving the snow long enough to harden. It may seem hard after you've walked over it a whole bunch of times, but the key is waiting that 30+ minutes because then it's gonna be rock hard. And while I'm waiting for my tent pad to harden, there's a bunch of other things I do around camp to make things easy and comfortable. The first thing I like to do is make my winter highway. And what that means is that I basically just go and walk to every place that I might need to get to. So the picnic table right here, I'll make a nice little pathway to that, kind of clear the snow off maybe. And I know the outhouses are further down that way, so I'll create a path over there just in case there's a morning emergency I need to get there really quick, as well as I'll take a look to see if I need to dig it out at all. And if I'm planning on having a fire, then another camp chore that I'll do while I'm waiting for my tent pad to harden is collect some firewood, chop it, cut it, process it, and get all that ready for a fire later in the night. And while I'm doing all my camp chores, I'll leave my hiking or travel clothes on because I might get a little bit sweaty, and my hiking clothes are quick drying and manage moisture and sweat quite a bit better than my camp clothes. And on that note, there's probably a few videos that you guys would be interested in if you are curious about the gear that I use on these trips. The first one being the clothes that I hike in. So I have a video dedicated to my winter hiking clothes, and I go over everything that I wear and why. I'll post that video in the video description so you can go check that out if you're curious. The other two are my camp clothes. So I have a video dedicated to everything that I change into and wear around camp during the winter time. And the third being all of the gear that I bring. So that's my tent, my pack, my sleeping pad, my sleeping bag. I go over all of that in my gear list video. Like I said, if you're curious about those videos, I'll post them in the video description, as well as a list of all the gear that I used on this trip. I'm done the camp chores. The ground is nice and hard. It's time to set the tent up. And setting up your tent in the wintertime is a bit of a unique beast. We already went over how to get the ground ready for it. Actually getting it to stay put is another battle entirely. And there's a few different things that I do that I find make it easier in the wintertime to set up your tent compared to some other methods, as well as still gets your tent really secure and locked down onto the ground. I just have the tent body laid out right now. I use a single wall mountaineering tent that uses tent poles in order to give it structure, not a trekking pole tent like I usually use in the summertime. Those of you not familiar with winter camping might be asking how I get tent pegs to stay in the snow. Even though the snow is nice and hard, it's still pretty fluffy. In order to do that, I use winter specific tent pegs. These are snow pegs. They're wider, they are longer, and they actually hold in snow really, really well. I use these for the four corners of the tent as well as the vestibule. For the guy outlines, I use a different method, and I'll show you that once we get there. Now I want to show you what I do for the guy out line. So today I'm just gonna guy out from this point right here and this point right here. And there's a method that I use called the dead man anchor that really locks the guy lines down, and if it gets really windy, it's probably not gonna move. It's a bit weird to explain what a dead man anchor is, so it's probably easiest just to show you. The first thing you wanna do is go get a stick or two, depending on how many guy outs you're gonna have. I got 2, so I got 2 sticks. About a foot in length is probably enough. You don't need anything too long or too thick for that matter. So this is a neat little system that my tent has where it has little hooks on either end of the guy out rope, and then use that to pull the tent out. Next, what you want to do is you want to dig a trench into the snow in a T shape pointing at your guy out line. So I'm going to just do that right here. It has to be the length of the stick as well, and you might see where this is going. Just dig about 6 inches down, and then you get the T going out this way towards the tent. And we're gonna use the same principle that we used to set up the tent. We're gonna put the guy out line attached onto this stick here in the trench, and then put snow on top of it, pack it down, and let it harden. For those of you who have done this before, you then know that getting your guy out line out from the trench can be a bit of a pain in the butt in the morning time after the snow gets really hard. And in order to address that problem, I do something a little bit different. I haven't seen that many people do it before. Actually, I don't think I've seen anyone do it before, but I get a little piece of string with a carabiner and 2 loops on it. So what I do is I put the carabiner through the 2 little loops on the string. I put the stick through the loop, and then I run my guy out line to the carabiner, like so. So we stick that in there, and then we can put snow on top of the stick, pack it down. And the nice thing about this method is, in the morning, I just undo one of the loops from the carabiner, and then I can just pull the string right through. Because it's so thin, it slices through the snow, and I don't need to worry about having to dig the stick up like you would if you had the stick going straight through all this loop here. If you want a little bit more space in your vestibule as well, then you can dig that out using a shovel. Dig down about a foot and you'll get quite a bit more space in there. I'm not gonna do it today because I'm feeling a little bit lazy, but there's another thing that I do, and that's open up all the vents in the tent. I'm not gonna get in there for a while, and some of the things that I'm gonna be putting inside the tent might have a bit of moisture in them, and I don't want any moisture building up in there while I'm cooking and enjoying the evening. Once I have my tent set up, then I unload all of my stuff into it, get my sleeping bag all set and puffed up, because it's really important to get your sleeping bag out of a stuff sack as soon as possible, get it nice and lofty. And then after that, I'm gonna go use this picnic table and get some dinner going, because I'm starting to get really hungry. Once I'm done all my camp chores, got everything unloaded into my tent, that's when I change into my camp clothes. My camp clothes are really warm, much warmer than my travel clothes. I'm actually getting a little bit cold in my hiking clothes right now, so I'm really excited to get into my camp clothes. There's a lot of merino wool, fleece, down. It's really warm stuff, and that's what you need if you're gonna be sitting around camp in the wintertime. After I get changed here, we'll get into some of the cooking stuff that I do. So I use a special kind of stove in the wintertime, different than my summer stove, as well as that's the river right there, and we're not getting water out of there. So getting water is a little bit different. As you probably guessed, in order to get water, we melt snow down. But there are a few tips and tricks that I'm gonna give you in order to do that efficiently. Once you get camp all set up, the next thing is water and food. So I'm gonna use the picnic table as my food prep, water cooking area. And hopefully on your hike in, you were smart and stayed hydrated the whole time. So you probably don't have too much water left. So the next step is getting water. And in order to do that, like we talked about, we're gonna melt snow. I set up my snow gathering spot just over there. So I already have the route all packed down, and I could also just use snow straight from the wall right here, which I might do as well. And it's important to have enough snow melting capacity. So in the summertime, you may use a smaller pot, but in the wintertime, I recommend at least 2 liters. I have here the Tokes titanium 2-liter pot. I'm gonna go fill the pot up with snow, and then I'll show you a little trick for melting snow quickly. Getting drinking water in the wintertime is actually a pretty big chore, because this amount of snow is gonna melt down to not a lot of water. And because of that, you have to keep adding snow into the pot in order to get a lot of water in it. And something I like to do so that I'm not having to go and scrounge for snow is I make a bunch of little snowballs and keep them near the pot, and then I can crumble them into the pot as the snow melts down. And then hopefully you didn't drink all your water on the hike up. It's always good to save a little bit, because if you put a little bit of water in with the snow, just about like half a cup, then the snow's gonna melt a lot faster, because water conducts heat a lot better. So you have water in the bottom of the pot and it's conducting that heat right into the snow and melting it really quickly. So that's just a little hack to get the snow to melt faster. Let's talk about the stove that I have here. So this is the MSR Ultralight Universal. There's a few things that you need to take into account if you are winter camping, because you're not gonna be able to cook the same way that you do in the summertime. And the first thing you need to realize, if you're used to using canisters like I have here with isobutane in it, then you're gonna have some troubles in the wintertime. Upright canister stoves don't work as well because all the fuel in the canister is liquid. And in the summertime when it's warm, when a lot of the fuel in the canister is gas, that gas rises, comes out of the stove, and you can light it. That just doesn't happen in the wintertime. And because of that, there's a few things that a good canister winter stove will have. First up, the canister will be inverted. So the valve for the canister is facing down. The second thing is that your stove should have a preheating tube. So what happens is a little bit of gas, and mostly liquid, goes to the stove, and you light it, and that gas turns into flame and heats up this tube. And then what happens with that is all the liquid that's coming through gets heated up and turned into gas, so you get a really nice steady flame coming out of your stove. And this kind of stove is really good from about freezing down to minus 20 degrees Celsius. So let's get this stove lit. We're running out of light here, and then we're gonna melt the snow. Got a little burnt. So with these systems, you will get a lot of flame right at the beginning. And then once that heating tube heats up and starts turning the liquid into gas, then the flame's gonna even out a bit and get that nice blue flame that you're used to. So that's winter camp life. You guys probably can't see me so well anymore. I'm gonna melt this water, cook my meal, eat, and then go to bed. I'm gonna watch some TV, read a book, and then have a really good night's sleep. Good morning, guys. Had another great backcountry sleep. I'm gonna wake up, get outside, and then I'm gonna talk with you about my morning routine when I'm winter camping. And it looked like it might have snowed a little bit here. There's some snow on the walls of the tent, so I'm curious to see what the conditions are like outside. Out of bed, out of the tent. It's a beautiful morning. It didn't snow quite as much as I thought it did, but there's a little bit of a dusting on everything, making everything look super fresh, really beautiful. And I slept in, so the sun has risen, and I'm gonna be able to do my morning camp routine in the daylight as well as hike out in the daylight, which sometimes isn't always the case. If I'm in a big rush or I'm trying to cover lots of miles, then sometimes I'll be getting everything done in the mornings in the dark. But I want to run through my morning routine with you guys, because if you have an effective morning routine, then you'll be more comfortable and warm as you wake up, and then you'll also be more comfortable and warm on the trail, because some of the things that you do are going to impact the rest of your day. And the number one thing any time of year is hydration. And I didn't mention this last night, but before I go to bed, I always boil a bunch of water and then put that in my Nalgene and inside this insulated sleeve. I don't bring this into my sleeping bag with me like some people do. The insulated sleeve here keeps the water from freezing overnight. It's very, very effective. But what I like about having this 1 liter with me is when I wake up in the morning, I can have a drink of water. I have that ready to go. And then I can also use this to pour a little bit of water in my pot as I melt snow, and I can use it in my breakfast. So waking up with a liter of water readily available is a really good practice and sets you up for success for the rest of the morning. Before I even get out of the tent, I like to get everything as packed up as possible, and I actually change into my hiking or travel clothes. And then I put on my down jacket, down pants, and down booties over top of my hiking clothes to warm them up a little bit. Because I have really quick drying hiking clothes, they're never wet in the morning. If anything, they're just a little bit damp, and getting my down insulative layers over top of them and then doing some activity inside the tent actually warms them up really quickly. So now that I'm out of the tent, I have my sleeping bag packed up, I have my sleeping pad rolled up, I have everything kind of contained into its little individual bags and into the corner of the tent where I can easily reach them. And then once that's done, I'm still continuing to think about hydration. That liter of water that I have prepped from the night before, that's basically just good for my morning. I still need another 2 liters for my hiking. And then I eat breakfast. For breakfast, I have oatmeal, instant oats. I just pour cold water in here. If you want to, you can use boiling water, but I just can't be bothered, so I always eat it cold. And then once I've eaten breakfast, have my water prepped for the day, I'll take my tent down, pack up my pack, and then I'll take off my down layers here, put them in my pack as well, and then I'm ready to hit the trail. And it's looking like it's gonna be a beautiful day to hike out. You can kind of see my trail just over there, so I'm glad it didn't snow too much because it was pretty brutal breaking trail down to get here yesterday. So I'm excited that I'm not gonna have to do that. I'll just be able to follow my trail out. Like I said, I'll post links to all my gear lists in the video description. If you want to check out some of my other winter content, then I'll also post a link to my winter playlist right up there and you can look at that. If you guys have any questions about my winter routine, let me know in the comments. I know some of you have never winter camped before and it's kind of a unique, different beast. So definitely let me know if there's any questions that I can answer for you. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time. Hey guys, Justin here. You've seen me out on a whole bunch of winter camping trips this year. I've shown you some great views, talked about how much sleep I get when I'm out on trips. But the question I haven't answered is winter camping fun. And I'm here with my girlfriend, Steph, and we're on a trip. This is her first winter camping trip ever. And we're gonna answer the question for you guys of whether winter camping is indeed fun. So like I said, this is Steph's first time winter camping, but because you've been backpacking a bunch and this is your first time winter camping, I'm curious from your perspective, what's like the thing you're most scared of, or like what's kind of like kept you from winter camping before, or like what are you most nervous about?
A little nervous about the cold. It's supposed to get down to -20, I think, tonight. A little concerning, but other than that, I'm excited. Company's good. I have food.
Yeah, like Steph said, -20. We're kind of throwing her into the mix right away. We're gonna keep the hike up, we'll get to camp, and then I'll start showing you a bunch of the things that we prepared and brought with us in order to have fun at camp and enjoy winter camping.
Oh, you know that.
So Nate's camp, you guys may recognize this spot. This is the Lake Minnewanka LM8 campground, one of my favorite campgrounds. So I wanted to take Steph here. And one of the things that I think makes winter camping really awesome and a lot of fun are the views. Normally, all these deciduous trees would have leaves on them and be blocking some of the view of the beautiful lake and mountains. So wintertime, we get views. And I think that's something to keep in mind if you're planning a trip in the wintertime and want to be fun. Is views definitely add a little bit of something to the trip. That being said, I find trips in the wintertime that may be mundane in the summertime to be really beautiful because you get that winter wonderland effect with all the trees covered in snow. Another factor for having fun, and we touched on this, is one of the things that you may be quite wary of if you're going winter camping and maybe have never been before, is staying warm. And right now I got Steph over there sawing wood, working hard, and that's so that we can have a nice pile of firewood, have fire all night long. And then the other thing that we brought on this trip was the hot tent. So this is the 3FUL hot tent. And there's a few things that we're gonna set up inside the tent that'll make it even cozier and allow us to have a little bit more fun that I'll show you in a little bit here. And I guess the other thing that I forgot to mention, a lot of my trips this winter have been solo, but a really good way to make winter trips a lot more fun is to bring good company. And I got that on this trip, so I'm pretty lucky. So we got fire going. Steph's all bundled up. And we got some water in the pot on the fire. We're gonna make some hot apple cider with a little bit of cinnamon added in. And I promised you I'd show you, before it gets dark, I'll show you kind of the swanky tent setup that we have, because we're gonna be super comfortable in there once the sun goes down and we hop into the hot tent and get the stove going. So let's go check it out. So here's the hot tent. There's our sleep system. Got some warm sleeping pads there with the X-Therm, and then the X-Lite with some extra foam pads underneath. Here's the beautiful 3FUL use stove. And then while we're in here, in order to be comfortable, we brought a couple chairs and a table. And we also have some cards and a crib set. So you're gonna have a fun little time hanging out in here, nice and toasty with the stove. So now the camp's all set up, the key now is just to hang out around camp and keep having fun. I guess I'm curious, Steph, is there anything that you've kind of realized in the first little bit here of winter camping once we get to camp that you'd like to share?
Yeah, to stay warm for me, I think I should have gotten into my warmer clothes a little bit sooner. I got quite the chill earlier, but yeah, and getting a fire going was really important to staying warm.
Steph brings up a good point. I think something to realize is that everyone's different, and Steph's much smaller than me. She gets colder quicker, so she needed to get changed in her camp clothes a little bit before me. I'm actually still in my hiking clothes, so I'm still pretty warm. But get changed into your warm clothes before you start getting cold. That's the key. And if you have people who may start getting cold quickly, then definitely get a fire going. Once we got the fire going, got some hot liquids into us, changing our warm clothes, I think we're doing a lot better. We're just gonna keep staying warm, having fun. We're gonna get into the hot tent once the sun goes down and play some games, and I'll show you guys a little bit about that. But otherwise, we'll check in again in the morning. I have a few more tips, I think, on how to have fun winter camping, and I'm really curious to ask Steph some more questions about her experience winter camping for the very first time, because I've been camping solo, so everything that I've been doing is my experience, and it's awesome to be getting someone else's opinion, experience, and learnings out here. And I think it's very valuable for you guys as well, especially if you're new to winter camping. So the sun went down, got pretty cold, so we moved it on into the hot tent. It's already pretty darn warm in here. These things heat up really quickly and put off a lot of heat. Little stove there, and then little chairs and table. Get some crib going. We probably won't keep the stove going all night. It's a lot of work to keep them filled with wood and going, so we'll let it die down, but our sleep system should be warm enough to get us through the night. Well, it will be warm enough to get us through the night.
Yeah, I hope so.
Otherwise, I'll be waking up and getting a fire going in the hot tent. So a lot of wood. We should be good for a few hours in here with the wood we have. Yeah, well, we're gonna play some crib and see you guys in the morning. Good morning, guys. So we're all packed up, took down the hot tent. We're gonna go stack that wood by the fire for the next people that come here. We just had a really nice, lazy morning. The hot tent is kind of a game changer in the morning, so you can get up, get the fire going, get it. We got it up to 20 degrees Celsius this morning while we were in there, so that's a really nice way to wake up and eat your breakfast. We're gonna get hiking, warm up a little bit, and then I'm gonna share with you Steph's thoughts on her first time winter camping and some of the things like what was the best part, what was the worst part, and what surprised her. We're hiking almost back to the parking lot. Just wanted to stop, take in some of this view right here. And I had a great trip. That was a lot of fun. It got pretty cold. It did probably hit that minus 20 degrees Celsius, minus 4 degrees Fahrenheit last night. So definitely a chilly night, and definitely chilly for Steph's first time. I wouldn't recommend for you guys out there going out in that temperature for your first time winter camping. There's a few things that we had that made it a little bit more bearable, but that's what I'm curious about with you. Did you have fun?
I had a lot of fun. Most of the time.
Most of the time. I guess I'll start off with the negative then. What was the worst part of winter camping for you?
The worst part was right before I ate dinner when I was really cold.
Really cool. Yeah.
So the cold probably. But it got better.
Yeah. I think we talked about that last night a little bit, just with the fact that if you had gotten changed into your warm stuff quicker, probably would have been better. And then what was kind of the best part of winter camping for you? Contrasting it with like 3-season, which you've done a lot. Is there anything kind of with winter camping that makes it special?
Yeah, I think just the views in general are kind of spectacular in the winter, and the fact that there is nobody else around. It was really quiet and just kind of almost, I don't know if serene is the right word, but it kind of just felt like we were in our own little bubble with no one around, so that was pretty spectacular. That was cool. And
we had the whole campsite to ourselves, so there was nobody within kilometers, tens of kilometers of us. So that was, yeah, a really cool aspect. And then was there anything that surprised you, like that you kind of didn't expect with winter camping based on your expectations going into it?
Yeah, the hot tent was spectacular. Because I mean, I was just sitting outside while you were in there kind of getting it started, and when I got in there it was almost like a sauna. It was really, really hot inside, so that was really amazing.
Yeah, I think the hot tent's a game changer.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going out, you want to like socialize a bit. Like Steph and I, we stayed up in the hot tent chatting and hanging out, and that was a lot of fun. And if it wasn't for the hot tent, we would have just been jumping into our sleeping bags and going to sleep. And it was awesome for me getting Steph's perspective. I learned a lot, and I think it's going to be super helpful for me sharing with you guys some more tips and tricks for winter camping as we move forward. And definitely, I think the key takeaway is everyone's different, and you need to make sure that you're paying attention to your limits and what your body's telling you with cold, because wintertime it gets cold really quickly and you want to stay warm because that's what's going to keep you comfortable and facilitate having the most fun. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time. Hey friends, Justin here, and I'm about to start a 2-day backpacking trip. And on this trip, I want to really talk with you guys about navigation. I get questions about how I plan my trips and then navigate those trips all the time, and I understand why. Not being confident in your planning and then navigation skills can lead to a lot of anxiety on the trail. And there's 3 reasons I think this trip in particular is going to be great to talk with you guys about navigation. First up, it's in an area of the Canadian Rockies that I'm not super familiar with. I haven't been down this valley before, so it's going to be new to me. And I know for a lot of you out there, going to a new area can be pretty stressful. Second, there's a lot of trails in here that connect and a lot of intersections, and I'm going to have to be on my game to make sure I'm taking the right trail and not getting lost when I'm out there. Third up, I'm going to have to do a little bit of off-trail navigation right at the end of today in order to get to my campsite. And that campsite should be pretty cool. It's going to be at the base of some frozen waterfalls. So let's hit the trail and I'll start dropping some tips on how to plan and navigate your trips so that you're more confident and comfortable. First things first is how I actually plan the route that I'm gonna be going on for a trip. And I use a web-based app called Gaia GPS on my computer to plan my trips. It has a whole bunch of trails on it, and I'll use that in order to plan the route that I'm gonna be going on. I really like Gaia because it has all the trails on there, but then you can also create custom routes using that network of trails in order to make a customized trip. And then once you have your route determined, it'll tell you what the distance is, as well as the elevation gain and loss over the course of the route. Gaia GPS also has a phone app, and the phone app and the web-based app sync over your account, which is super useful. Once I have the route determined, I'll go on my phone and download it. If you have the Gaia GPS subscription, then you can download the maps for offline use, which is really nice because I can just stick my phone into airplane mode and then still navigate using the phone app. If the Gaia app seems interesting to you, you can go to GaiaGPS.com/JustinOutdoors and they'll give you 20% off a subscription. The last step, once I've kind of planned my trip, is really the way that I navigate the most when on trail, and that's using my Garmin Fenix watch. So I have here the Garmin Fenix 6 Pro, and I can upload maps onto here using Gaia on my phone. I can just send it to the Garmin app, and then the Garmin app sends it to my watch. It's actually a really seamless process. And then I have a colored topo map on my watch that I can use to navigate with. When I'm planning trips, I also like to use the app Ultralight. I use this for the trip reports. It's not my favorite navigation tool, not even close. I don't find it reliable at all, but I do find the trip reports for certain trails to be a really good source of information. For a trip like this, I was able to go on Ultralight and see that people have done this trail recently. So I knew I wasn't gonna have to be breaking trail through deep snow, and that was something that helped me prepare what I was going to bring. So I just am wearing my boots and didn't bring my snowshoes at all. Those trip reports can also be super useful for giving you information like, has there been a rock slide and a detour around that? Or is the trail flooding? Is it super wet? Are there a lot of muddy spots due to horses going on and poo everywhere? This is just good information that I like to get before heading out on a trip. That being said, take Ultralight information with a grain of salt because I have ran across inaccurate trip reports or trip reports that are for the wrong trail. So definitely do your due diligence and make sure that the information that you're reading makes sense for the trail that you're going to be going. When you're planning your trip and you're looking at the maps on Gaia, another thing that you should make sure that you're doing at that time is memorize the landmarks that you're going to be encountering on the trip. I know that I'm following this river, the Evan Thomas Creek. Because I made sure to note that the trail follows the creek really closely the entire way, then I knew that I should not take that little fork in the road back there that goes into the forest, and that I should head this way and follow the creek. And I'd know that even if I wasn't using my map and navigation tools like my watch. Any sort of water feature is a great landmark. Rivers, big lakes, things that show up on the map like that, as well as even cliff bands. If you see a lot of contour lines really close together, then that's probably an indicator of a cliff. And there's another little feature related to landmarks that I'm going to touch on that's very important, but we'll hike a little bit before we go into that tip. Looks like I might have some running water at the campsite. This next tip has to do with something that doesn't get talked about very often, but there's a lot of people who are really big advocates for it, and that's the paper map. I'm not the biggest advocate for paper maps because honestly I prefer navigating using my watch and my cell phone, but there are definitely some situations where a paper map comes in handy. The first one being if all of your electronics somehow die at once. Maybe there's an electromagnetic pulse that kills all electronics, including your battery bank and all the backups that you have. But the main benefit I see of having a paper map is a little bit more practical, and that has to do with being able to mark up a paper map. Guide is really nice because you can save your map as a PDF, and then depending on the PDF software that you're using, you can mark up the map. So what I like to do is I circle a lot of the main landmarks. So if there's a river, I may highlight that. If there's a lake, I might circle that. And then you can make notes as well on the map. So you can make a note as far as, okay, make sure to take this left turn. Or the lake that you're going to use as a landmark is more like a marsh or a swamp. And because of that, you may have missed it if you hadn't taken that note on your map. And then once you mark up that PDF, you can print it off and take it with you. It weighs pretty much nothing. Or if you want to, if you're more old school, you can mark up the map by hand after you've printed it off. An example of where this has been handy for me is that I was going on a trip and I'd read some trip reports that said there was a turn that was really easy to miss because of some fallen trees. So I made note of that spot on the map. And then I also made a little note beside the landmark of what kilometer that was at. And then as I was navigating with my watch, I was able to see, okay, I've gone 5 kilometers and I know that this turn that's easy to miss is at kilometer 5. So I was able to keep an eye out for those fallen trees and hit the trail that I was supposed to be on. So we made it to the spot that I wanted to camp tonight. This frozen waterfall behind me is called the Big Green Monster. You can probably guess why. And it's really packed down around here because of all the people that come and visit the waterfall, as well as, I'm guessing, go ice climbing on it. So there wasn't as much off-trail travel as I thought there was going to be at the tail end of today, but I do get a really nice campsite. I'm going to be getting camp set up, and then as I do so, I'll show you guys some of the gear that I brought on this trip that I'm testing out. And tomorrow we're going to go over more navigation stuff, and it's things that I think are even more interesting. It's the more micro navigation, as I call them, things that are going to keep you from getting lost when you're on your trip, as well as help you be more efficient when you're traveling. And while I'm sitting here, I guess I can talk about one of the pieces of gear that I'm testing out on this trip, and that's the Waymark Light pack. So this is a frameless pack. It does have a hip belt, but there's no frame in the back. And this is the first time that I'm really using a frameless pack with a lot of weight in it. I have probably about 27, 28 pounds in it, and it's doing really well. The hip belt actually works just like a regular hip belt on a framed pack. I have the pack loaded pretty well, and it's transferring the weight to my hips effectively. So we got the REI Passage 2 tent set up. This is a new tent for me for 2021. I wanted to test this out because it comes in a really neat bundle package from REI that includes this tent, a sleeping pad that I'm also trying out tonight, and then a sleeping bag. And it's all at a very, very good price. I wanted to see if that package is worth it for me to recommend to you guys to either buy for yourself if you're just getting into backpacking, or something that you can get for a friend or family member who doesn't have any gear and wants to get into backpacking but doesn't want to break the bank. And as you can kind of tell, it's a little bit windy out. There's wind just funneling right down this canyon here. So I will be guying it out because I haven't tested this tent out in a lot of wind yet, and it's gonna be a good test today. It has some good guy out options here. It seems pretty stable, so I am excited to try it out and put it through its paces. So this is the sleeping pad, the REI Stratus insulated air pad. So it's a 20-inch wide pad, 2.5 inches thick, has an R value of 2.9 and 1 pound 5 ounces. So for the price, this seemed like a really good pad. So I'm excited to try it out in the field for the first time today. I've only tried it out in the comfort of my balcony and at home. And then since it is gonna get pretty cold tonight, down to about 20 degrees Fahrenheit or -6 degrees Celsius, I'm also gonna be putting my Nemo closed cell foam pad underneath this. So that'll give me a little bit more R value. As well as use my Hikenture pillow that I got here. And then I'm also going to be using for insulation my Light & Equipment Enigma 20 quilt here. So for that I have some pad straps. And then I also brought an Enigma Apex quilt. So this is made with a synthetic material that I'm going to use in a 2 quilt system just in case it gets colder than I expect tonight. Something new that I picked up from Enlightened Equipment, they had pad straps before that had 2 clips on it, so you could clip both of your quilts into your sleeping pad. But what they added was these little additions that you can just put onto the pad straps that you already have. Instead of having to buy these separate fancy pad straps, you can just use these, and that makes it really a little bit more easy and convenient. And then a little tip, I put the pad straps around both my main sleeping pad here and then the foam pad underneath, and it just keeps them together nicely. I also used a label maker to add left and rights to my pad straps for my quilt here, because I find half the time I was putting the pad straps on incorrectly and then having to take them off and put them back on, and that was a big pain in my butt. So that's a really nice little hack if you also experience that problem. And I always get questions asking about gear that I don't specifically mention in my videos. So if you're interested in anything that you've seen that I didn't talk about, for instance, I get asked about my snow pants all the time. I'll leave a list of gear in the video description so you guys can go check that out. If there's something I missed, just leave me a comment and I'll make sure to add that to the list. Morning guys. Had an okay sleep last night. Got a little bit cold, and that was because my sleeping pad system wasn't necessarily warm enough for frozen ground conditions. And that addresses a topic that I see come up quite often, and that's why sleeping pads use an R value rating system instead of a temperature rating system. And it really comes down to the fact that your sleeping pad is mostly insulating you from the ground and not the air. So air temperature wouldn't be the best rating system to rate sleeping pads. You'll need a much warmer sleeping pad in the spring when the ground is still cold or potentially frozen, compared to late summer or fall when the ground has thawed out, even if the air temperature is the exact same. And last night was the perfect example of that. It only got down to just below freezing. I see temperatures like that most of the summer where I'm in the Canadian Rockies, and I can get away with an R value of 3 or higher usually when the ground isn't frozen. But when the ground is frozen like it was last night, then I'm needing something usually above 5. So I got pretty much everything inside of my tent all packed up. I'm wearing my hiking layers right now underneath my insulated layers. I like to get changed into my hiking clothes and then pack everything up inside the tent. I find that if I get changed in my hiking clothes and then do a little bit of work inside there, then I warm them up, and I'm gonna be nice and toasty when I get out of the tent into the cold air, even though it's only just below freezing right now. It's gonna be a pretty quick start this morning. I'm gonna get the rest of my tent packed up, eat some craisins, have a protein bar. Then we're gonna hit the trail so I can start giving you guys some more tips on how to navigate in the backcountry. Something that I brought with me that I'm not gonna have to use on this trip is a wag bag. So this is a bag that if you have to go number 2 in the backcountry, you go into this and then you pack it out. And I think it's pretty much essential in the wintertime when the ground is frozen and you can't dig a cat hole, because if you're just pooping on the snow, then that's just gonna wash into the rivers and streams that you're gonna be drinking out of when you have spring melt. As well, we're in a bit of a canyon type scenario here where it's really hard to get 300 feet from this water course in order to do your business. So for those reasons, if I had to go poo today, I would have been going in the wag bag and packing it out with me. First tip of day 2 is to plan for conditions that you're going to be comfortable in, and then that you have the tools and equipment to actually tackle. I'm on a trip under winter conditions right now, so that means that I need the tools for that job. When you're planning, make sure you're paying attention to the weather, paying attention to the trail conditions that you're going out in, and then having the right equipment. For this trail today, from a hiking perspective, that means that I probably should be using my micro spikes. I didn't use them yesterday, but after some of those tricky, icy, hilly sections with the ropes, I realized I should probably be wearing these, so I'm gonna be putting these on for the trail today. So as we're starting the hike for the day, it brings up the second tip of the day, and that's making sure that you're aware of what your next checkpoint is. So for me right now, as I'm starting the hike, I know that my next checkpoint is in 2 kilometers, and that checkpoint is a turn in the trail. There's gonna be a fork, and I'm gonna have to take the right-hand turn. Your checkpoint could be anything from a turn in the trail to a landmark like a lake or a waterfall. And it's important to know what your checkpoint is so that if you're hiking and you know you're supposed to be hitting a checkpoint in 2 kilometers or like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, then as you're hiking, if also you've been hiking for an hour and a half and you haven't hit that turn or that landmark, then you know that you should stop, double check your maps, and take your bearings. And of all the tips that we've talked about this weekend, this one might be the most important because it can really save you from spending hours going down the wrong trail and really getting lost. This next tip may require you to step out of your comfort zone a little bit, but it's ask people that you see on the trail what the conditions up ahead might be like. The best source of information is people coming the opposite direction to you. They've just walked the trail that you're heading onto, and they have a ton of information and can really help you out. An example where this has been useful for me is I stopped and chatted with a couple people on a trail last summer, and they let me know that the bridge that looks like it should be on the trail is washed out, but that if you bushwhack upstream a little bit, there's another bridge that was newly put in. It just hasn't had a trail really well established to it. So that saved me having to ford a pretty deep river, and I was able to safely cross using the bridge. And when in doubt, double check. If you're a little uncertain of where you are on the trail or if you're on the right trail at all, then stop, double check your maps, your paper map if you need to, and make sure that you know where you are. If you guys watched this video and got a little bit intrigued about winter camping, then go check out the video that I'll post right up there where I take my girlfriend on her very first winter backpacking trip. If there's anything that you guys want me to elaborate more on with regards to navigation, let me know in the comments below and I can make some more videos talking about maybe how I use my watch a little bit more or how I use Gaia a little bit more. Thanks for watching, friends, and we'll see you next time. Hey friends, Justin here. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm a little bit nervous about this trip I'm about to start. It's a 3-day, 2-night loop in the foothills of the Canadian Rockies, and there's 5 different things that are making me a little bit more nervous about this trip than I normally would be. First up is that there's not a lot of information out there about what the conditions are like. The second reason, and it kind of builds off the first one, is that I don't even know if there's a trail for a lot of the places that I'm gonna be going, and I can be bushwhacking a lot of the parts. The third reason is that on day 2, I'm gonna be getting up onto a ridge top, and I don't know what the conditions are like, and there could be a ton of snow, and I really don't want to be getting into a scenario where I'm on a ridge in deep snow in avalanche condition. And the fourth reason is bears. It's bear season, and I've been to this general zone before, and I know there's bears, seeing lost scat, so definitely going to be on the lookout for that. And the fifth reason compounds all the other ones, and that's that I'm going to be traveling alone. It's really easy to lose the trail as you go through these snowfields, and if there is a trail, right now there's really not a trail at all, so we're just kind of making it up as we go along. But luckily I have my trusted navigation tools with me. I did an entire video on navigation that I'll link in the video description. You can go check that out. But I'm using my Garmin Fenix 6 Pro watch here, so I have the track for my route loaded on here and I can follow it. I'm right on it right now, so I'll just kind of stick to it because I don't really have anything else to go off of. And then I also have Gaia GPS on my phone with the route and map downloaded for offline use. So I'm in airplane mode right now to really extend my battery life. And with Gaia GPS and the premium subscription, I can download the maps and have them full access without cell phone reception. So that's a really good feature of Gaia GPS, but you do need to pay for it. If you want 20% off, go to GaiaGPS.com/JustinOutdoors and you can get a little bit of a deal. That was tough. There's no trail. I'm 100% bushwhacking right now, and you can see from here I went up from the road up to the top of that hill, down the valley, then this little hill right in the middle there, then down another valley, and then up to another hill here. So it's just up and down, up and down. Yeah, I may have bitten off more than I can chew on this one. Feeling pretty discouraged right now. That was just a super tough section, snowshoeing up through that forest with tons of blowdown. I'm pretty tired after that. Yeah, just feeling super defeated. Mentally, I'm not there today, and I think that's really affecting it as well. I think the kind of hiking that I'm doing is just all mental, just trudging through snow 1 foot in front of the other and not really like moving quickly at all. But that will drain you mentally really quickly. So that's my struggle today. My struggle is just trying to keep mentally in the game and keep going. All right, so I'm feeling a bit better, but that's because I decided to try and find some place to camp right now. I'm literally only halfway done what I was supposed to do on the first day, and this is a prime example why you need a backup plan, especially if you're doing a trip where you're trying to push your limits. Yeah, I guess good job for me for planning for having a backup plan, but not good job on me for kind of misreading what the conditions were going to be like. So yeah, it is what it is. We're gonna set up camp here. So got camp a little bit set up here, got a fire going, melt some snow, got my tent set up over here, sleeping pad inflated, quilts all set up, so we're good to go for spending the night at this campsite. Still 2 days to go. Lots of things to go wrong potentially, or obstacles that I need to overcome, and I'm excited to take you guys on that journey and just talk a little bit more about preparedness while you're on a backpacking trip and just rolling with the punches. The things I want to talk with you guys about still are what to do in case of an emergency, my check-in procedure and how that whole system works, as well as day 3. We're probably going to get into a little bit more bear habitat, so I want to touch on that a little bit more as well. What I do, I know a lot of you don't live in bear country, but there's some cool things that you can do in order to prevent bears from eating your face. Gonna get the rest of my day finished up here, and we'll see you guys in the morning. Morning, guys. I'm gonna get a whole bunch more water made out of melted snow, get everything packed up, then we're gonna hit the trail. Did my morning business, and now time to wash my hands. I grabbed this powdered soap from Pika Outdoors. I'll post a link in the video description. This stuff is awesome. It got below freezing last night. The soap is just in a powder form, so it doesn't freeze, which is a game changer when it's cold out. The number of times I've had to deal with frozen soap is ridiculous. So having this stuff is pretty sweet. It lathers up really nicely. Get a nice clean hands, and it actually leaves your hands nice and soft too. So a little bonus there. By the way, if you're wondering what that bag was that I was holding, that's a wag bag. So this morning I pooped in that bag, and I'm gonna carry the poop out with me. Wag bags are the best way to deal with your waste if you're in sensitive environments or there's no outhouse or you can't dig it to cat hole. So in the wintertime, I think wag bag is the best way to leave no trace when out in the backcountry. Still sinking in, so should be a fun day. At least I'm feeling better up here, so that's a good thing. With this snow coming, there's another hazard that I'm a little bit worried about, and that's visibility. I have my watch to navigate with, I also have my phone on me, but if for some reason both of those die, if the battery dies and I can't recharge them, then I need to figure out how to get out of here. And the way I do that is I have what I call the bug out plan, and what it entails is basically using the compass that I have on my thermometer here. It actually works pretty good, this little compass, and I know that if I'm heading west on the ridge, then my bug out plan is to head straight north. I'll hit a highway and I can hopefully get a ride back to my car. It's super important to always have a bug out plan. Always be aware of where your exits are when you're on the trail. You don't want to just be following the trail and not really know where you are in the grand scheme of things. You want to know where your highways are, where your water bodies are, and how you're gonna get out of a bad situation. You can't help but laugh. I'm carrying my poop through the mountains with a 40-pound pack in a blizzard. I stopped for a little break. The snow's only picked up. Made it to the top of the ridge, Lusk Ridge here. That was definitely a lot of work to get here. It was, I think, 7 or maybe 8 different peaks along the ridge that I had to go up and then down and then up and then down. So a lot of elevation gain, a lot of elevation loss. Compound that with the fact that I was bushwhacking in super deep snow most of the time. Yeah, feels good to be here. I'm about to check in on my inReach here with my girlfriend. So whenever I get to kind of like a checkpoint, or even right before I do something dangerous, like that little scramble that I did back there, I'll send in a preset message. So the inReach, you get unlimited preset messages and you get 3 presets. So I have starting the day, made it to camp/car, and just a random check-in letting you know that I'm okay. So I'll send those random check-ins throughout the day, and I send those messages because my check-in, my girlfriend Stephanie, she has my itinerary and route. I emailed that to her right before I left. I said, this is where I'm going to be camping, this is my trail, this is my backup plan, this is my bug out plan. I give her all those details so that if she doesn't hear from me for a while, she can send me a message, and then if she still doesn't hear from me, then she can start implementing search and rescue to hopefully come and find me. And if she has those check-ins throughout the day, and especially if it's right before a little bit of a riskier section, then she knows approximately where to send search and rescue in order to find me if I am hurt or in danger. Normally it's a bit of a nicer view up here, but that's what we get when hiking a ridge in a blizzard. But we're gonna continue on the ridge, and then we drop significant elevation and then get down into a little valley where Lusk Creek is, I think, and that's where we're gonna be camping for the day. So I made it to the campsite and I feel pretty good about the last couple days. I checked the weather when I was checking in at the top of Lusk Ridge there, and the forecast has changed and it's saying that it's going to be minus 20 degrees Celsius tonight. I had planned for minus 10 degrees with a 10-degree buffer, so I am prepared for minus 20, but I don't really feel safe staying out here for another night with that weather. I was ready to do it, but that weather just kind of tipped the scales, and it's only 10 kilometers on a pretty easy trail back to my car, and it's 2 p.m. right now, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna head back to my car. Thanks for coming along this journey with me, friends, and we'll see you next time. Hey friends, Justin here. We're about to start another spring trip in the Canadian Rockies. This has been an interesting spring for me. I've been on several trips that haven't gone as planned, and it's left my confidence a little bit shook. I'm a planner, I'm meticulous with my planning. Leave a comment if that surprises you. But when things haven't gone as planned on these trips, it's really affected me mentally. Because of that, on this trip, I'm changing my approach. I'm adjusting my expectations. On the other trips, I had the expectation that things would go smoothly because I had planned so well. But on this trip, I'm expecting it to be hard. I know it's gonna be hard. I'm doing 70 kilometers over 3 days, and the weather's gonna be crazy. There's gonna be snow at elevation, and the campsite situation's a little bit weird. I'm not quite sure what to expect. And for you gearheads out there, I also brought along a bunch of new gear that I'm gonna be using on the Great Divide Trail this August. So this trip is kind of testing my mental abilities, kind of training for that, as well as testing out some new gear.
I met an old man. I said, tell me your story. He took out an old pen and wrote something for me. He kept walking on down the road.
So just stopping for a little snack here, right by the reservoir. We're actually gonna be following this reservoir for a really long time. At the end of the reservoir is the campground for tonight. And we're just gonna be continuing down this valley basically until the end of the trail.
And I thought I'd just seen a ghost. And I looked down at what he wrote. It said, son, when you grow up you'll be fine. I know you've got questions on your mind. Life is gonna happen one way or the other, whether you like it or not. Stop looking for the answers, and you'll find what you've got. I met a young man searching for glory. I took out an old pen and wrote in my story.
Did you guys see all those rain clouds as we were walking down the trail? I'm super stoked that for the entire 33 kilometers that I did today, it did not rain at all. All the rain just kind of went around me. It's a pretty unique campsite. It's only for hikers and bikers, and you can only stay one night. So because I hiked in here, I'm allowed to stay here. Normally it's just a day use area, but it's a pretty awesome spot. The campsite is right on the lake here, or a little pond, I guess. So that's gonna be fun with the beautiful views behind me. I'm gonna get this tent set up, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what was going through my mind throughout the entire day. I can see the rain coming in right over the pond there. But I got the Ultraplex all set up. So this is the Z-Packs Ultraplex. I got this for the Great Divide Trail that I'm gonna be doing in August. Super lightweight. This thing looks really roomy as well. I've been super impressed with the setups that I've done back in the city. This is the first time I've taken it out on the trail, and really excited to see how it does. It was a really introspective day, so I did a lot of thinking over the course of the trail. Didn't listen to much audio the entire time, and yeah, I just kind of enjoyed the walking. It was really nice. And while I talked about part of this trip being about letting go control and being okay with some of that planning aspect, not going to plan, there is just a whole lot of other really good parts about today as well. And sometimes you just don't know exactly what it was. I'll think about that. It's starting to rain a little bit here. You can hear it on the tent. We might hit some more weather tomorrow, so we'll see. We'll see. I'm expecting the worst. That's the whole point of the trip. My expectations are for it to be another tough day, but enjoyable day. I think that's something that maybe I took away from today, is that you can still have an enjoyable day. You can still have aggressive goals and have expectations that it's going to be tough. Those two things can go together. Sometimes I do have troubles wrapping my head around the difference between expectation and a goal. So definitely going to continue thinking about that. And yeah, looking forward to tomorrow. And I'll definitely show you guys around camp a little bit more here as we get things going in camp life. Pretty roomy in the Ultraplex. I have a brand new Enlightened Equipment quilt here as well, made with a 7 denier fabric for the shell and 950 power fill down, so super lightweight. Got the X-Lite for my sleeping pad and then a Hike-Encher pillow. I'll post links to all the gear that I show and talk about in the video description if you're interested in taking a closer look at it. It's starting to rain, so we're gonna get dinner cooked up here super quick. We're having a peak refuel beef pasta marinara, 1,040 calories. So that'll be nice after a big day. And we'll get this BRS 3000 stove going. It's a little bit windy, so we'll see how much that affects things. And then for my spoon, I ditched the Tokes titanium long handle spoon for this trip. I cut a McFlurry spoon and then stuck my extra tent peg into it. So I don't know if this is stupid ultralight or smart ultralight. You guys let me know in the comments, but this is what I'm gonna be eating all my meals with on this trip. Might get a little bit of dirt in there, but that's okay. A little dirt never killed anybody. The rain is coming in hot, so my meal's all ready to go. Let's have a bite here. We'll see you guys in the morning. We've got a big day tomorrow. We are gonna be hitting that elevation where there might be snow, so that's gonna be really interesting to see. And I still got more gear to share with you guys as well. Morning guys, had an okay sleep. I'm gonna get everything packed up. I like to pack up my tent and sleep system before I eat breakfast, but I'm really excited to show you guys breakfast because I have something really delicious lined up here to fuel me for this big day. For breakfast, I got oatmeal with chocolate chips and then dried fruit, dried strawberries, raspberries, whole bunch of stuff. And I'm eating it all out of this Rusby bag here. So these bags are awesome because they're reusable. They're dishwasher safe, so I can just throw it into my food bag after I'm done eating and then bring it home and wash it and then reuse it for the next trip. And they have these flat bottoms on them, which make it really nice for being able to rest it on there, and they're kind of bowl legs. So one of my favorite new pieces of gear for this year that is sustainable and just a lot better than using a Ziploc bag for your oatmeal. And then for hiking today, we got 20 kilometers, so it might feel like an easier day, but this is the area where we might encounter snow once we get up over into those mountain areas over that way. And the weather is looking like it might not cooperate with us again. The weather, we got lucky yesterday, the weather went around me all day long, but there's rain clouds everywhere in the mountains right now, and it could end up raining on us, so I'm prepared for that.
Close your eyes, get some rest. I'm by your side. Lay your head on my chest. I know you've had a really bad day. Right here, it's gonna be okay.
So several hundred meters of snow, kind of like this. Minor post holing, nothing too crazy. It was a nice little reminder that even as you get into mid-June, there's still snow up in the mountains. Gonna have a little break here. I think we're getting pretty close to the highest part of the trail. And we got some really nice views. Over here, we got the reservoir over there that we walked along yesterday. Beautiful mountains, and the trail continues on that way.
The world could fall down, it's gonna be okay. The sun could go out, we're gonna be okay. If
and it just started snowing.
Don't let go. I understand. I know it hurts.
As I drop elevation here, that snow is turning to rain.
It's over now, so don't despair. The world could fall down, it's gonna be okay. The sun could go out, we're gonna be okay. If all the blue skies fade to gray, we're gonna
Sun's coming
be
out.
okay.
One more break before we make the final push to the campsite for the night because this view is amazing. Day 2 in the bag, got camp all set up here at the Sawmill campground. Really nice spot, and I'm feeling really good. We had a lot thrown at us today with post-holing, rain, snow, and then beautiful sunshine as well. It was nice, relaxed 20K today, so I took probably 3 or 4 different breaks and just really enjoyed any of the really nice spots that I came across. So it was nice to be able to do that. I want to show you guys a little bit about what I do once I get to camp. So I set everything up. I threw my quilt up on the tent there. It's really sunny and there's probably just a little bit of moisture from last night, so I want to get it up there and drying out as much as possible so the down can loft fully. Depending on what time I get to camp, I'll either get dinner going as soon as I have camp set up, or I'll do a little bit of stretch. Today I arrived pretty early, so we're gonna get a little bit of a stretch in. I also like to take the insoles out of my shoes, take my socks off, loosen my shoes up, and then just go barefoot inside them. I find that allows my feet to air out really well, and then I can dry out my insoles and my socks if they got a little bit wet or sweaty like they did today. So tomorrow we got another fun day planned. We're gonna keep heading down this trail into the forest over there and down that way. Should be a really cool suspension bridge that we cross. I've seen pictures and it looks awesome. Probably the longest suspension bridge I've ever seen and that I'll ever have crossed. And then the real kind of big question of the day is, how do I get back to my car, which is 70 kilometers that way, back the way we came? So we'll touch on base on all of that. And then I also have a little bit of a story to tell you. Fun fact about Justin that makes the next section of trail pretty interesting and potentially a little dangerous as well. Morning guys, kind of an eerie morning this morning, which is kind of a good backdrop for what I want to talk about next, because I know a lot of you out there are scared of bears, especially grizzly bears. I'm in grizzly bear country right now. I've been living, working, playing, and backpacking in the Canadian Rockies in grizzly bear country for 8 years and never seen a grizzly bear. On my drive up, I saw not 1, not 2, but 3 grizzly bears. And they're all in the section of trail that we're about to get onto. So this last 20 kilometers here, that's where I saw all 3 grizzly bears. And there's a few different ways that I'm gonna try to avoid an encounter with grizzly bears, because that's my #1 priority is avoidance. I do carry bear spray if we do run into each other, but there's a few different things that I do in order to let the bears know that I'm coming. Well, the year was 1776 and I wish I was in Sherbrooke now. Letter of marque came from the king, the scummiest vessel I've ever seen, goddamn them all. Hey bear. Hey bear. A wimbo up, a wimbo up, a wimbo up, a wimbo up. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. Ah wee, a bum bum away. Nice little rock seat there that'd be good to take a break on, but no breaks for me today. I want to make it to the end of the trail really quickly because this 20 kilometers is only a small part of the day. I still need to get 70 kilometers back to where my car is. Here we're coming up to the suspension bridge. Oh, this thing is cool. Look at that. I am afraid of heights as well, just so you guys know. Oh, this thing's wobbly. Woo! So we started this trip talking about how planning and my need for things to go right with that planning while on backpacking trips has led to some issues while on trips. And I've been thinking a lot about that as I've been going on this trip, and I think it really comes down to like a lifelong issue that I've had, and that's with needing to prove myself to other people as well as to myself. And when things don't go as planned, I see it as a failure. So that's something that I need to work on and that I'm going to continue to work on. And I think that's an interesting aspect of the trail. If you're not ready for it, especially on solo trips, things are going to come up. It's going to expose things, especially when you're putting yourself into more difficult situations, pushing your limits. You're going to start having those issues that you may have been dealing with your entire life, may have thought you had dealt with, come up, and I think that's a great thing, but something just to be aware of. And this trip was a great Divide Trail preparation. I got a whole bunch of different conditions. The mental health aspect was there, which is going to be huge on the Great Divide Trail, and I'm really excited for that. I'm going to finish off this hike. I'm going to grab my Rad Power e-bike, and that's what we're going to use to bike back to my car at the beginning of the trail. If you guys are interested in my Great Divide Trail journey, I'll post a playlist to that right up in the corner there. Right now I have a video out about how I'm going to be training for the Great Divide Trail, as well as some general information. So go check that video out and follow along on the Great Divide journey. Hey guys, Justin here, going on a little overnighter. Got my girlfriend Steph with me, and I'm really excited for this one because we're going to be maximizing comfort. We brought a whole bunch of gear. We're doing a lot of different things in order to be as comfortable as possible while hiking and at camp. One of the big considerations for being comfortable on a backpacking trip is your pack weight. My pack's around 25 pounds on this trip, and Steph's is at
Around 26, I'd say.
26 pounds. But we find that 25 to 30 pound range to be kind of the optimal to be comfortable on trail. Anything more than 30 pounds, it starts to feel a little bit heavy on the hips and shoulders, and under 25 pounds is just kind of too easy. So what we like to do is we get all of our essentials together, the tent, sleeping pad, sleeping bag, we pack that, and then we start adding different comfort items that we'll actually show you once we get to camp. But we add those comfort items until we get to that 25 to 30 pound range. There's not a whole lot else that we do in order to be comfortable on the trail. We make sure we're wearing the right clothing. I like to wear long sleeve pants and shirts in order to protect myself from the glaring sun like we have today. We also like to use hiking poles. Hiking poles just help take some of the load off your knees and legs, as well as make it a little bit easier to do watercourse crossings. The other thing that we do to maximize comfort is we keep the hike pretty short. We like to get to camp and really enjoy camp life. So this hike's only about 7 or 8 kilometers, which is kind of the sweet spot for us. We're gonna finish this hike off and we'll show you how we maximize comfort at camp. So we made it to the campground, the beautiful Ray Lake. We got a nice fire pit over there. First things first, gotta get our yummy pale ales into the creek so that they cool off so we have a nice tasty treat after we set up camp. And then once we get everything set up, we'll start showing you some of the other comfort items that we brought with us. We went all out on this trip. So we got the tent all set up and the sleep system's inside the tent. The tent's super roomy and the sleep system is super comfortable. I'm excited to show you guys all of that a little bit later. Right now we got our beers out of the creek, having a nice cold one, and we got our chair and tables all set up. If you're going on a super comfortable backpacking trip, chairs, you gotta bring them at a minimum. But if you wanna get super luxury, then you gotta throw the table in there as well. Just really nice for putting your stuff on there, place to store your wine, your beer, and then if you wanna play a little game of crib, then you can do that as well. We brought a really nice bottle of red wine in this Platy Preserve. So this is what I recommend if you wanna bring wine on a backpacking trip. I'll post links to the Platy Preserve, chair, table, everything that I talk about today in the video description, so go check that out. We're only gonna have a little bit of the wine here because we have a really yummy dinner plan. That's another thing, if you're gonna go on a comfort trip, you gotta eat well. Steph is really good at pairing wine and food. Go check her on Instagram, Steph the Sommelier. But she picked a really yummy wine to pair with the meal that we got going on tonight. Another thing that we like to do in order to be super comfortable when backpacking is have change of clothes. So right now I'm wearing my hiking clothes still, but Steph is changing into her camp clothes. It's nice to have a clean set of camp clothes once you get into camp. And if you're comfort camping, then you're probably gonna be sitting around camp a little bit. So you wanna have some clothes in order to keep warm. In order to accomplish that, let's have Steph model here with her toque or beanie if you're in the US, just to keep your head warm. And then having a nice fleece, nice comfy fleece as a mid layer. You can wear just that, or if it is a little bit colder, you can throw on a puffy jacket. Steph's wearing a nice down puffy jacket there. And then on the legs, Steph's changed into some camp tights. I like to have fleece pants. And then the best part of the entire thing are the camp booties. So it's nice to have some sandals, which I'm wearing, or you can grab some camp booties if your feet run a little bit cold. So time for dinner. Really excited for today's dinner. We have some bushka meals here. So this is a risotto, creamy risotto with wild boar. And then we have a unstuffed pepper with bison. So really looking forward to these ones. Got to get 24 ounces of water boiling here. So get that going. And Steph brought a white wine and we have the red here that we're gonna pair with those because they'll both pair with each meal separately. All right, so we got a boil going here and pour into each of these. Look at these, there's a ton of awesome vegetables. These look delicious. So we'll get some water in there. And what's really nice with these is you only need to let them sit for 3 minutes before they're ready. So pour the water in, give them a little stir, let them sit for 3 minutes, and then we'll have some delicious meals that we'll talk about a little bit later with the wine. So the meals are all set. Actually super awesome how quickly these meals prepare with you only need to wait 3 minutes, which if you're in a rush, if you're a thru hiker or something, 3 minutes for a meal to get ready if you're really hungry is awesome. And then we got our white wine and our red wine.
So after first initial tastings here, both go well with both, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I'd say we agreed that the Sauvignon Blanc is a great pairing for both and probably the ideal pairing.
If you're gonna be going on a comfort trip, treat yourself. Bring a couple bottles of wine, bring some delicious meals, and you're gonna have a good time. And having a campfire just makes things that much more cozy and comfortable. We're gonna enjoy the campfire, finish off the wine that we got going here, and then head to bed. Tomorrow morning, I'll show you our tent and sleep system. I've been keeping that a little bit of a secret because I think it's the most important thing for being comfortable when you're backcountry camping is making sure that you have a nice tent and a comfortable sleep system. Good morning, guys. Had a really good sleep last night, but that's mostly thanks to the sleep system. Waking up to some really beautiful views here of Ray Lake. And then we're gonna go check out that tent right through the trees there because it's a really nice tent and I've been really happy with it. So the tent that I've been using for comfort trips with 2 people is the Durston X-Mid 2-person tent. So this is a really roomy tent. That's one of my favorite things about it. It's also really easy to set up. It only takes 4 tent stakes, which is unheard of for a tent, especially a trekking pole tent. But then once you get inside, you can fit 2 25-inch wide sleeping pads in it, and that's really uncommon for a 2-person tent. Now looking at our sleep systems, Steph and I actually have similar but different sleep systems. So I like to use a quilt. A quilt just facilitates tossing and turning a lot more. I can use the pad straps on it to lock it down onto the sleeping pad here, and then I can just toss and turn just like I'm underneath my blanket at home. I find that if I try to toss and turn with a sleeping bag, I get all twisted up in it and it's just not as comfortable for me. But Steph, she has a sleeping bag over there and she loves a sleeping bag. She just loves being cocooned inside of her sleeping bag over the course of the night. And we both have pillows. She has a pillow over there that she actually tucks inside the hood of her sleeping bag, and that's the way that she likes to enjoy it. She doesn't need a pad strap or anything. Whereas I have the Trekology 2.0 pillow here. It has a pad strap. It locks it right down onto the sleeping pad. And then I used my thin EVA foam sit pad here in order to raise the pillow up a little bit, because I find the Trekology just a little bit too short. So this just raises it up so that I don't get any neck cranks over the course of the night. And then we're both using super comfortable sleeping pads. These are probably the 2 most comfortable sleeping pads on the market. I have here the Nemo Tensor insulated, really comfy one. And then Steph has an even comfier sleeping pad with the Ultralight XT, and this is the Ultralight XT Extreme version. It is quite a bit warmer than the insulated version, and it's good down to winter temperatures, but we figured we're in spring still, so we'd bring this one for us to make sure she's warm. And the reason why this one's so comfy is because of the air sprung technology. So that means there's these little connectors going through the sleeping pad, and it creates these dimples which alleviate pressure points really well. And the Tensor kind of has these, but not quite to the same capacity as the Ultralight XT. It just does it a little bit better. If you guys are interested in my full ultra comfort gear list, I'll post a link to that right up in the corner there. Go check that out. That has all of the gear that I bring in order to be comfortable on the trail. Just got the stove going on this fall hot tenting trip. Steph and I hiked into one of my favorite backcountry campgrounds out there, and with our packs only weighing an average of 30 pounds, we were able to bring a ton of stuff in order to stay entertained, stay warm, and have fun. And really the hot tent that we brought with us is really awesome. So excited to share with you guys everything that we brought with us, kind of our routine once we got to camp and everything that we did, and take you along on this journey. So just at the trailhead here, it is not a warm day, but Steffi Poo and I, we've got some bigger packs, got some stuff in them. Our packs don't weigh too much though. How much does your pack weigh?
I think 26 pounds.
26, nice. Mine.
Including the wine.
Including the wine. Oh yeah, we got some nice treats here for us, some mixed Vickies, some wine there. But we'll show you everything that we got in our pack for this fall trip once we get to camp. We're gonna be doing a nice little overnight here to Big Elbow Campground, one of my favorite spots. Not too long of a trip, which is sweet for a fall, cold day. It's below freezing already just after 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And it's gonna be getting down to -7 degrees Celsius tonight, or under 20 degrees Fahrenheit. But we're ready for it. We have the gear to stay comfortable, have fun. And this is a trip we've both been looking forward to all week. So looking forward to getting to camp, especially, and getting that hot tent set up. So you guys probably know, if you've watched my last few videos, what I like to bring when the temperatures drop and we're fall backpacking. But you might be curious, and I'm curious, what kind of the 3 items Steph likes to bring in order to be more comfortable during cold weather trips and fall backpacking.
Okay, my first one has to be down mitts. My hands, they're pretty warm right now, but they get very cold at camp. Hot apple cider is definitely another one. Throw a little whiskey in there.
Nice, yeah. Oh, we brought that on this trip.
We did.
And we also have cinnamon as well. So that should be really nice to have. And what about the third one?
Definitely a sleeping bag, not a quilt. I love my sleeping bag. I love being cocooned. I know this guy doesn't, but I love sleeping bags, so that would have to be my third for sure.
Wait for me! So we made it to the Big Elbow campground. We got a bunch of wood here. Steph's stoked because while I set up the tent, she's gonna be collecting firewood. I think her job's gonna be pretty easy. And then we'll take you on a little bit of a trip around camp life for us when we're out here fall camping and using the hot tent. Steph's already going, look at her. What a good little worker. So I got the hot tent set up. This is one that you guys have seen before. This is the 3FUL Tribe tent. It's huge, but they made some improvements. This is a new and upgrade version over the one I had last year. Yeah, really excited to have this new version of this tent. It's an awesome hot tent, and this is the hot tent stove that I have here, brand new. Here's a stove from Polmolly. I've heard really good things about their stoves. And then here, I'll just move this like this. Okay, good look at everything that's in here. So here we have the stove, and what's really cool about this one is that it's a folding stove. So legs just fold out like that. Close this door here. The door and the back just open up. The sides fold up, and then you just slide it all together. It's like crazy how easy it is to set this stove up. And it's pretty lightweight as well. It's a titanium stove. So really happy with having this and excited to try it out. As you can see, it's not the biggest stove in the world, but it should do the trick for us tonight. We have a lot of wood. We'll just keep feeding it. So let's go throw this in the tent. And now for the worst part of a brand new hot tent stove, and that's getting the chimney rolled up. So they come rolled like this, but then you need to get it rolled lengthwise. And when you first do it, it's really quite a pain in the butt. But once you get the first burn in, then it's not too bad. So let's see. This might take me a while, and I might need Steph to help me out. So you guys get to watch me struggle for a bit. Really nice fire starter from Bigfoot Bushcraft. They make these little fire starters that work really well. Let's get a little base in there. Ooh, this is a tiny stove. Get it going. So what I'm doing now is I have a different strategy. Splitting the wood a little bit, sawing it, and then stomping it, and then I get small enough pieces to put into the stove. So here are our sleep systems. This is the Sea to Summit Sparks. This is a men's sleeping bag, and it's rated down to -9 degrees Celsius comfort rating. And this is Steph's women's Sea to Summit Flame, and it's rated to the same comfort rating for women. So we should be good to the same temperature with these two sleeping bags. And then she has the Sea to Summit Ultralight XT Extreme sleeping pad that she's using here. This pad is so comfortable, so warm. yeah, really jealous that she gets to use that. But I'm on the trusted Thermarest X-Therm. This sleeping pad is one of the lightest and warmest on the market, so really good. And Trekology 2.0 pillow, and Steph's using the Mech Deluxe pillow over there. So now that we kind of got our cozy little home, this is actually a really big hot tent. We get both of our wide sleeping pads in here. We're using a, I think this is just a Mylar, but with some foam in it, matting underneath that, just so we're not laying bare on the ground. And then we got our chairs and tables and a glass of wine. We're gonna boil our water and cook our food right on a stove here. And we have some really good meals. We have Steph's favorite meal today, so we'll show you that. We'll show you that as we get cooking here.
Okay, this might be weird, but I wanted to show you guys how the bathroom has all of this toilet paper. So luxurious. Justin's gonna be so excited about this.
So Steph's got one of her pieces of gear on, her little down mittens. Her hands get really cold, so that's part of the reason we bring the hot tent, keep everyone warm, and the down mittens definitely help. We'll post links in the video description to all this gear that we're talking about today if you want to check it out. And then what do we got for dinner today, Steph-a-rooney?
Well, got some good to go
chicken
pho. Good to go chicken pho.
So that's my meal, and then Steph's favorite meal,
Bushka's Kitchen Hearty Harvest.
that one's so good.
It's so good.
That's one with wild boar, vegetables, and that's like a risotto kind of thing?
It's so good, yeah. I will have this every time I go camping from now on.
Yeah, it's
so good.
If you guys watch my GDT trip video and then my post-trip food rundown, then you'll know that that's one of my favorite meals out there. So good.
It's boiling.
Woo. Dinner time. This is actually a lot of water in here.
Yeah, I just poured like basically a whole liter.
There we go, and then 350, perfect. I'll give those a stir. Bushka's Kitchen, and here's the pho right here. How's the first bite?
So good.
Is it everything you remember?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
So good.
Not bad. So this is the FloraGuard saw. It's under $20, I think. I think it was like $15 US. And it's the second trip I've used it on. It's working really well. I don't think it's gonna replace my Silky, but a good option if you are looking for a saw at a more affordable price than the Silkies. It's time for the pho. Basically this looks like soup. Check it out. Yum, yum, yum. We're gonna finish eating up here, and then I'll show you guys what we have in store after dinner, because we still got like, well, we go to bed pretty early. We go to bed at like 8:30.
We have like 2 hours.
It's 7 o'clock right now, so we'll be up for a bit. But I brought some things to entertain us, and a lot of it I'm able to share with you guys. Okay, I'm done all my chores, so I'm gonna switch out of my boots here, put on my booties. Steph and I actually have matching booties. Look at these, and just started snowing. I think you can hear it on the walls. Oh, that'll be cool if we wake up to like a little bit of snowfall in the ground. That'd be really fun. Yeah, so I think in the wintertime especially, having like a nice pair of booties to slide your feet into. Oh yeah, that's the ticket. And then for fun to pass some time tonight, brought the crib board. This is like not ultralight, but definitely a little bit more lightweight than like those big wooden ones. You got a little bit of wine. How much wine do we got left there?
Oh, a lot.
You got half a bottle of wine, so
half, yeah.
this crib game is gonna get interesting quickly, and gonna keep the hot stove going here. Got a lot of wood prepared, and then yeah, it'll be nice to get cozy in bed. I think we're probably just gonna keep playing and call the night with you guys and just enjoy ourselves, and we'll touch base in the morning and let you know how our sleep went, because really curious to see what your thoughts are on that sleeping bag.
Yeah, me too.
Good morning, guys. It is well below freezing outside, so I'm gonna be getting this stove going so that Steph has a nice warm tent to wake up to. That's one of my favorite things about hot tenting, is when it's really cold out, you can get the stove going and then do all of your morning things like getting coffee ready, eating breakfast, and packing up in the nice, warm comfort of a tent. And then once we get some coffee into Steph, we'll talk about how well we slept last night, because it did get pretty cold. So I got all my wood processed last night while it was still warm in here, so it should be pretty easy to get the stove going. Burnt down pretty well last night. There's a couple reasons why we don't keep the stove going over the course of the night. Number one, it's just a huge pain in the butt to have to keep feeding wood in here. The little stove like this will only keep putting out good heat for about an hour. And then the second reason is that we don't want to get carbon monoxide poisoning. So that wouldn't be fun. But yeah, use these little fire starters again. You just kind of twist them up. Gets the cotton all nice and good there. And I use one to light the other one. I think she's just waking up now. Do you want me to get some coffee going?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we're gonna just we have a pot of water from yesterday. Just gonna throw this onto the stove, and the stove gets warm enough that we can just boil the water just right on the stove here, which is really, really nice. Saves a lot of fuel. What you got for coffee there?
Menace Cafe straw.
Nice.
Yep.
We're gonna have a Starbucks cafe mocha. And for breakfast, we have homemade oatmeal, these recipe bags. These things are awesome. Mm-hmm. And yeah, some oatmeal in there, chocolate chips, and dried berries. So now we got some coffee in you. How'd you sleep last night?
I slept well. It was pretty cold though. There was a lot of wind coming in under the tent right into my sleeping bag all night. You guys
can actually probably see the gap right there. That was blowing wind straight into Steph.
I was just protecting Justin, sleeping all warm and cozy.
It's true. I was actually almost too warm in just like very thin merino wool base layers. It's yeah.
Yeah, it got better. It got better once. I like to sleep with my pillow in my sleeping bag, in the hood of it, because it's really cozy. But once I took that out and actually did the sleeping bag up around my neck as it's supposed to be, it was much better. So lesson learned.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, it was cozy for sure, other than the wind.
Yeah. So I think next time we'll figure out how to get the tent down a little bit lower so there's no wind blowing into Steph. So that was a great trip.
Yeah.
What video should people go check out next?
Top 5 fall tips.
Yeah, go check out the video. I'll post it right over Steph's face right there. 5 tips for fall backpacking. If you want to be able to enjoy backpacking in the fall, then definitely go check that video out. Hey friends, Justin here. It's time to go winter camping. I've been waiting for this day for months. We had a really long fall here in the Canadian Rockies, but 2 days ago it started snowing and it hasn't stopped since. Yesterday, I started getting really excited. It's the weekend now, so I wanted to go out and experience the winter if it was gonna get into those kind of conditions, and started pulling out all my gear. Got my Mountain Hardwear winter pack here, my Polar Ranger sleeping bag, some new gear that we might talk about on this trip, and I haven't decided on my sleeping pad yet. It's up in the air between the Thermarest X-Therm and the Steeda Summit Ultralight XT Extreme. Both good sleeping pads. You guys let me know in the comments which one you think I should bring, and then I'll let you know once we get to camp and I get all set up which one I actually ended up bringing. Made it to the trailhead here. A lot of snow on the ground, at least a foot. But as I kind of gain elevation and head up into the mountains, we should see even more snow. Like I said, should be about half a meter up there, and temperatures are gonna get really low. It's supposed to get down to minus 20 degrees Celsius tonight. So should be a pretty intense first winter camping trip of the year. So I'm using the Black Diamond Trekker skis. You can see down there. So I'm using my regular winter boots with them. Whoa! And then they have a built-in skin on the bottom. So it's kind of like a alpine touring ski, but that you don't need dedicated alpine touring bindings and boots for. I'll keep you guys updated on how these guys are doing, and then we'll kind of touch base maybe at camp on how I'm liking them so far. This is a winter wonderland right now for sure. So glad I came out. It's nice that we got the sun. Something that might happen tonight, some people are telling me on trail, is the northern lights are supposed to just be going off tonight. There's a big solar flare and we should be getting some northern lights potentially. So I'm gonna be continuing along here, following this side of this river valley, but then I wanna get a view up that valley for the northern lights. I think I found my campsite for the night. Got a nice flat spot right here, and then I can see down the valley and hopefully catch the northern lights. This is very exposed. Normally I wouldn't camp here because wind just funnels down this valley and pummels this area really aggressively. I've been here before, and let me tell you, when it's windy, you do not want to be camping on an exposed spot like this, but it's not supposed to get super windy tonight, and I have a pretty robust tent, so fingers crossed we're A-okay. I'm gonna stomp out my tent pad and then set my tent up right there. Now that I have the area where I want to set up my tent packed down, I gotta leave it for about 15 to 20 minutes so that snow really bonds together and solidifies so that I have a nice solid platform. And in the meantime, I want to talk about the skis I used to get up here. So these are the Black Diamond Trekker skis. These are the 147 ones. And they basically just have kind of like a snowboard binding on them. So just a couple of ratchet straps. You stick any sort of hiking boot or winter boot in there. I'm wearing some Salomon's Tundras right now. And then you can essentially ski with them. This pivots so you can kind of move like a cross-country ski. And the bottom of them has a built-in skin. So what's nice about this little skin here is there's little hair-like fibers that only go in one direction. So when you're moving forward, you can glide forward and then not fall back because those little hairs catch you. So you can see I can slide my hand this way really easily. This way, not so much. Got the tent set up and the temperature is dropping fast. It is gonna be a really cold one today. And that's something I was looking forward to. Honestly, I wanted the snow, I wanted the cold. This winter, I'm definitely gonna be trying to move the needle for myself a lot and hopefully providing a lot of tips and tricks for you guys and provide some inspiration so you can maybe get out on your first winter backpacking trip or kind of push your limits. If you want to check out the Black Diamond Trekker skis, I'll post links in the video description to them and as well as all the gear that I show you today. So I don't think I mentioned my pack. That's the Mountain Hardwear AMG 75. Awesome pack for winter, by far my favorite winter pack. And here's the Nemo Tenshi tent. This is an awesome winter tent for one person, but unfortunately they discontinued it, which is kind of weird for me, but I got my sleep system set up inside. Let's go take a look. So here we have the inside of the Tenshi. We got my Thermarest Polar Ranger sleeping bag, best sleeping bag for winter, I think, on the market. There's a couple features in there that are just phenomenal. And then I brought the Sea to Summit Ultralight XT sleeping pad. I wanted to go with something that's just super comfortable, and the Ultralight XT Extremes are the most comfortable pads out there, I think, for winter time. And I really wanted to test it out in really low temperatures, winter conditions. I brought it out in temperatures down to about minus 10 degrees Celsius, and it did pretty good. So tonight's gonna be the real test, going down to minus 20. We'll see how it does, and tomorrow morning I'll touch base and let you know how my sleep was. I have a thermometer right here. This is a Bluetooth thermometer. I can see the temperature on it, as well as it connects to my phone. So I'll be able to kind of keep track of the temperature over the course of the night, which is awesome if you want to be able to kind of test your sleep system, see how cold it got, and see how you slept and how cold you might have gotten over the course of the night. The next step here is to change into my camp clothes because it's starting to get cold. I like to stay in my hiking clothes until I'm done on my camp tours because they're already a little bit sweaty. So if I get them a little bit more sweaty and damp, then that's not a big deal. They'll kind of dry overnight, and I don't want to get my camp clothes all sweaty because they're my key element for staying warm over the course of the night. It's 5 p.m. It's already gotten down to minus 11 degrees Celsius. So I'm gonna make dinner now and then probably get into my sleeping bag, into the tent, because I can't stay out here if it starts getting any colder. Even though I'm wearing down pants, huge down jacket, a lot of layers, it just starts getting cold. I'm not used to this cold yet either. This is the first winter trip of the year. So we'll get the pot out here and get some water boiling so I can cook my meal for the day. And then a little hack is put some water into the bottom of the pot, and the snow will melt a lot faster, and you also don't risk burning the snow and getting a little bit of a burnt flavor to your waters. Hopefully it doesn't get much colder than minus 20. I forgot some things on this trip, and it could result in an uncomfortable time out here if it gets really cold. A couple of things I forgot. First of all, a stool to sit on. So luckily there's this rock here, and I was able to put down my my foam mat in order to sit on that, keep my butt warm. And then I also forgot pad straps to put around my sleeping pad. I brought my synthetic quilt to put over top of my sleeping bag if it gets really cold, but it's nice to keep that quilt in place with pad straps, and I forgot that. And I also forgot a pillow. That might be the most heartbreaking item of all, is the pillow, because I love sleeping with a pillow, and I think I'm gonna have to stuff my jacket here into a stuff sack and then sleep on that, which I do not like. It is not my favorite option for a pillow. So we got a boil in there. Let's get that water into this meal here at Bushka's Kitchen. These things only take 3 minutes to rehydrate under normal conditions, so it should rehydrate really quickly even though it's cold out. And then I have my little koozie, reflective koozie here, to keep it in so that it doesn't lose too much heat as it's rehydrating. That should do it. That was about 6 minutes. So take that out. This is a hunter's pie, so it's, what's in there? Ground venison with mashed potatoes and a bunch of different veggies as well. As you guys know, I love Bushka's Kitchen, and this meal is no exception. It's kind of like a little shepherd's pie. Here, I'll give you a look. Yummy. It's not late, but I'm gonna head to bed. I downloaded a movie. I have some books to read, so I'm gonna do that from the cozy warmth of my sleeping bag. And then the sun is setting. The sun sets at 6:20, so should be set in about 45 minutes here. And then maybe I don't know when I'm gonna get up, but I'm gonna get up at some point before midnight and try and see the northern lights. I'm not sure what. I should have looked into when peak northern lights are, but that's gonna be sweet. Hopefully I can see them over through the pass there. And with how cold it's gonna get tonight, I think tomorrow morning is gonna be frigid. So I'll probably have a little bit of a slower morning. But I'm excited to wake up and share with you guys how the night was, and maybe probably wake up with some really nice sunrise views and then ski out of here. Good morning. That was a cold night. It got down to below minus 25 degrees Celsius. which is one of the colder nights I've had in a very long time. I got up at 10 p.m. to check for the northern lights, didn't see anything. And then after that, it was just way too cold to get out of my sleeping bag. And the pee bottle that I have right there is a testament to that. I'm gonna have to empty that out once I get out of the tent. But I don't want to get out of my sleeping bag. I don't want to get out of the tent because it's still very cold. It's 9:30 a.m. and it's still minus 20 degrees Celsius. That's one of the tough things with winter camping. The mornings are really difficult, and a lot of the time you just need to kind of get up, get going so that you're moving and getting warm. And that's what I'm going to do. But go check out a video post up in the corner there. It's my first trip from last winter. A lot almost goes wrong on that trip, but luckily I make some good decisions and end up with a really fun first winter camping trip. It's beautiful out here in the wintertime, but it can get really cold, which can be dangerous and uncomfortable. But luckily, I brought some things to help me out with that on this trip. I have basically everything set up. I've got the hot tent stove in there. As you can see, the chimney's pretty mangled. Lesson learned, don't try and put the chimneys together for hot tent in minus 30. It just doesn't work. Do it in the comfort of your home or in a warmer environment like your garage. It's a good lesson as to why you shouldn't rely on hot tents. If I was trying to rely on the hot tent to keep me warm tonight, I'd be in rough shape. It's supposed to get down to minus 20 and it's too dangerous to run the stove all night with me in it, with how many leaks I have through that chimney. So luckily I have a very warm sleeping system with me, and I'm going to be okay with the hot tent not functioning. It's very frustrating. I'm frustrated with myself. I should have tested my gear before bringing it out on a trip, and if I had done that, I wouldn't have this issue with the chimney. Look at that thing. Look how mangled that is. I'm gonna have to put in some work to get that looking good again. But it is keeping things warm in there, so hopefully I don't asphyxiate. I'm gonna boil some water on the stove and then probably watch a movie. Good morning, guys. I actually had a pretty good night last night, considering I didn't have the coziness of the hot tent to hang out in. This chair adapter thing from Thermarest works out really well. Basically, you just put the adapter onto your sleeping pad, and then you can cinch it up into kind of like a chair, basically. And it was really nice to be able to sit on my sleeping pad in my sleeping bag and read and watch a movie. So I was still nice and cozy warm. It didn't get quite as cold as it was supposed to last night. I ended up getting rid of the stove completely last night just to make a little bit more room in here. I'm feeling a bit better this morning about that hot tent failure that I had last night. We're going to talk about that a little bit more once I get through my morning routine. And I also had a pretty big realization kind of last night, this morning, that I want to share with you guys. I'm all packed up, and I promised you guys I'd share with you a realization that I had on this trip. I had a bit more time to think about it this morning because I had a bit of a slow, lazy morning. It's pretty warm out right now, -6 degrees Celsius, 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So kind of putzed around, had the coffee, a little bit of a slower morning. And normally when it's really cold out, I just get everything packed up and get moving right away in order to warm up. But when it's nice and warm like it is today, it's nice to take your time, enjoy the winter camping experience. And I love winter camping. It's one of the most beautiful times of the year. It's really quiet, serene. It's really nice out here. But yesterday when I had the issue with the hot tent stove chimney, I got into a bit of a bad mindset, and that's not what I want out here. A hot tent is really just a comfort item, and that's something that I realized last night when I was putting it all together and it wasn't working out is, you know what, I don't need the hot tent. It's cozy enough inside my sleeping bag. It's nice to have the hot tent just to kind of be able to hang out, but when I'm by myself, it's not essential. And sometimes I feel like I need to be that kind of professional outdoorsman for you guys, but there's a lot of things that I don't know how to do or I haven't been doing for very long. This is only my second winter hot tenting, and I don't have it figured out yet. Putting the chimney together in a warm environment, that's a lesson learned for me, and hopefully sharing it with you guys allows somebody out there to avoid that mistake. Check out this snow. This is awesome. And that's kind of the two-part realization that I had. First of all, I don't always need to have the answers. I can make mistakes, I can share it with you guys, and I think it's important for me to be making those mistakes and sharing them, because then you guys get to learn from my mistakes instead of going out there and making them yourselves. The other kind of realization that came along with that is that other than my sleep system and maybe the ability to make water, everything else is kind of a comfort item. I can get by in a winter camping scenario with just my sleeping pad, sleeping bag, and quilt. And then if I am on a longer trip, then the ability to melt snow and boil water is another essential item. But I'm kind of curious to kind of push those limits, maybe in a little bit more of a controlled environment, less remote, going out with just those core items and seeing how I do. If that's a video that you guys would be interested in seeing, then subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments. Otherwise, go check out my winter camping playlist up in there. There's a lot of really awesome trips in there, as well as videos about everything that I have in my pack, why I bring it, the clothing that I hike in wintertime, and then all the clothing that I wear around camp. It's wintertime in the Canadian Rockies. It's supposed to get down to minus 20 degrees Celsius tonight, and my pack weighs under 16 pounds. It's gonna be interesting to see whether the shelter that I brought with me is robust enough and the sleep system warm enough to keep me warm and comfortable tonight. But first, I have to get up to my beautiful Mountain Lake campsite. I've been to this spot before. It took me 2 hours to get up there last time, and I'm curious to see whether the lighter pack and the different ski setup that I'm gonna be using is gonna help me get up there faster today. I'm reminiscing as I head up the trail here about the last time I was up at Taylor Lake. It snowed over a foot on top of me, tons of snow. It's not supposed to snow that much tonight. There's forecasts for no snow, but you never know in the mountains. And in case you didn't realize, I'm using pretty much all ultralight gear. Ultralight pack, I'm using an ultralight tent that really isn't designed for wintertime, but I think is gonna perform pretty well. We're gonna see how that goes, as well as an ultralight sleep system. I'm pretty confident that I'm prepared for the conditions that we're gonna see tonight, but if things are much different than I've expected, then it could be an interesting night up there and potentially very uncomfortable. I'm using the Black Diamond Glide Light Trekker skis to head up the trail here, and I've realized something really interesting about these skis, but before I share that with you, I wanna thank Garage Growing Gear, my favorite ultralight store, for sponsoring today's video. If you want the coolest ultralight and best backpacking gear all in one shop, then Garage Growing Gear is the place to check out. Over the last year, Garage Growing Gear has been bringing in a ton of new products and now carry almost all of my favorite backpacking gear. And one of my favorite things to do with the Garage Growing Gear website is to check out the new items tab on their storefront. You can go there and see what new items they've been bringing in. A lot of really cool and innovative products. I go there almost weekly. That's how often they're bringing in new items, and I find so many cool things there. Stick around to the end of this video where I'll link to a video I did where I go over a bunch of innovative and cool gear that I discovered over at Garage Growing Gear. Gear items that frankly surprised me. I didn't think that they would be as good as they are, and some of them become for some of my favorite gear items of 2021. Go check out Garage Growing Gear at the link I'll put in the description. But now to tell you what I found interesting about the Black Diamond Trekker skis. Normally on things like snowshoes, as I go up hills, I like to have a heel riser that stops my heel and makes it easier to go up the hills, but I haven't found that to be an issue with the Glide Light skis so far, and that's been kind of surprising for me because I really like having that heel riser on snowshoes. I'll be doing a full review of these skis and I'll post a link to that in the video description as well, but we're probably getting pretty close to the campsite now, and I'm really curious to see how long this trip up to the lake has taken me. made it to Taylor Lake. That took a little bit under 2 hours, so faster than last time. I think the lightweight pack definitely helped. I also realized that I did this trip just after the holidays last year, so I might have been carrying a couple extra pounds not only in my pack. This is where I'm gonna set up camp. Nice spot with lots of snow. I know that there's a picnic table that I can use right underneath all that snow right there, and some pretty good views. If you didn't pick up on it, this is an ultralight trip. Like I said, my pack weighs under 16 pounds. That includes all of my food, my water, my sleep system, my camp clothing, and my shelter. It is a trekking pole tent, so it's gonna be tough to get it really anchored into the snow, but I have a couple tricks up my sleeve, so I'm gonna share those with you. But first things first, I need to get a really solid base made in the snow to set the tent up on. And don't worry, I am gonna share with you the other ultralight gear that I'm gonna be using for this winter camping trip, my sleep system, my cook system, some camp clothes. And like I said, it's supposed to be getting down to -20 tonight, if not colder, and potentially some snow. So it's gonna be a good test of all this gear that I brought with me. So I brought the Z-Packs Ultraplex tent with me. Like I said, it's a trekking pole tent. I think it'll actually do pretty good in the snow. It is a one-person tent, so I'm not gonna have a ton of space in there. In order to anchor out the guy lines, I brought 3 snow stakes. So those will be on the guy out points that I don't really care how well anchored they are, but then for the spots that need to be really well anchored, I'm gonna be using dead man anchors. Dead man anchors are by far the best and most solid way to anchor the tent into the snow. And I have kind of what I think is an innovative way of doing it that makes takedown a lot easier as well as installations. I'm gonna get those dead man anchors set up as the snow kind of settles in and sinters. And then by the time I wanna set the tent up, they should be nice and locked in. For my kind of custom dead man anchor, what you need is a stick, a nice kind of sturdy long one, just over a foot long. And then you have a string with 2 loops on either end and then a carabiner. And first thing you want to do, figure out where your guy lines are from your tent. And then from about 1.5 to 2 feet away, dig a trench in the snow. And you want that trench to be about 1 foot deep. 6 inches to 1 foot deep, and then the width of the stick that you brought with you. So you're gonna be putting that stick into the trench. And then put a T in that snow, doesn't need to be super wide or quite as deep, towards your guy line that you're gonna be anchoring for the tent. And then what you wanna do, you take your stick, you put it through the loop that you have here with your carabiner, rest that inside the trench, and then attach your guy line to the carabiner. You then want to fill back in this trench that you just made and pack it down nice and hard. After about 20-30 minutes, that snow is going to turn rock hard and then really anchor that stick into the ground. And then make sure that the whole carabiner is sticking out of the snow, because what's really nice about this system is that tomorrow morning, when I want to take this down, I don't need to dig the stick out. The stick's disposable at this point. I can just unclip one of the loops from the carabiner and then pull the whole string out, and then off I go. And then the name of the game for my cook system is titanium. I have an ever new titanium 1 liter pot. 1 liter is kind of the minimum I find in wintertime because you need to melt snow, and snow takes up a lot more volume than water. And then I saw how light my pack was this morning when I was getting ready to go. So I threw in my titanium mug. This is a double wall mug, so it keeps the contents nice and warm. And I'm gonna have a coffee tomorrow. And then the ultralight stove of choice for wintertime for me is the Fire Maple Blade 2. This is gonna be the coldest trip that I've taken it on so far, so we'll see how it does. I have a pretty yummy meal, and I have it stored in this reflective koozie in order to keep it warm as it rehydrates. This is actually a company based out of Calgary, so I'm really excited to try out their meals. They haven't even really launched yet. You can just get them in a couple spots. That's Wild Mountain Eat. This is a coconut lentil curry. It sounds delicious. Really looking forward to trying it out. Lentils and me don't sit super well, so I made sure to bring it out on a solo trip. So I think the snow is sintered enough and nice and solid, especially those 2 back anchor points. So I'm gonna get the trekking pole up the middle of the tent and then get the front guy line set up into a dead man anchor. I'm not gonna really pull too tight right now. I wanna just kind of get everything lined up and make sure that the front guy line is nice and lined up well. And then I'm gonna go around and tighten up all the guy lines a little bit better. And this system's gonna work just as well for an expensive tent like the Z-Packs Ultraplex and the Lanshan 1 Pro budget tent. That's my favorite budget alternative to the Z-Packs Ultraplex. Then I'm gonna use the snow stakes at the 2 front corners and then the back middle as well. Not the nicest pitch, but it'll get the job done tonight. I'm gonna get some snow melted in my pot here so I have some boiling water to put into my dehydrated meal. Then at the same time, I'm gonna get my sleep system set up inside the tent, as well as put on some of my warmer clothes because it's starting to get really cold really quick. Well, that didn't go as planned. Ideally, I would have kept the canister inside of my jacket, keeping it nice and warm. I wouldn't have had that issue with lighting it, and I wouldn't have caught on fire. See a little bit of fuel that leaked out there, the liquid fuel. That's what's catching every once in a while here. But yeah, not a huge problem. Able to kind of just blow that liquid out. I got a little bit of a singe on my gloves, but nothing major. So we're gonna get this water boiling and get the sleep system all set up. So for my sleep system, I brought the tried and true Trekology 2.0 pillow here. And then for my sleeping pad, I'm using the Neotherm X-Lite. And then you saw the switchback foam mat that I had there. So combined, those give me an R value of 6.2, which should be good for wintertime and sleeping on snow. And then I am using a dual quilt system. So I have a 20-degree Fahrenheit down quilt as my kind of quilt that's closest to me. And then I have a 40-degree Fahrenheit synthetic quilt that I'm gonna be putting on top of that. And that quilt combination should be able to get me down to about minus 25 degrees Celsius. What's interesting with this sleep system is that it uses a lot of summer gear. So I'm using a 3-season sleeping pad, I'm using a 3-season quilt, and then I'm just adding things to it. And with adding the foam pad and then the synthetic top quilt, it doesn't end up being that big of an investment or to sleep comfortably in the wintertime down to pretty low temperatures. And I'm just assuming that I'm gonna sleep warm comfortably. That's just based on some experience. It might get colder than I expected. This system might sleep colder than I expected, especially the sleeping pad that I'm using is not very warm. I've never used it in wintertime before, but I'll check in tomorrow morning and let you guys know how it all sorted out. And then my winter camp clothing, a bunch of it is in here. I'm gonna get changed into it after I eat dinner. Is pretty inexpensive as well. I'm wearing a Decathlon down jacket right now. This is a super warm winter jacket and it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. And a lot of my winter camp clothing is very inexpensive. And I'll post a link where I go over all of my winter camp clothing in the video description. So while all of the really fancy winter camping gear that I've kind of talked about in past videos is really nice to have, it's usually lighter, it usually has a bunch of features that make things a little bit easier and more comfortable while you're out there. You can easily winter camp in cold temperatures using 3-season gear that you just supplement with some additional items. I have my meal rehydrating in my koozie right here. I'm gonna wait another 5 minutes before that and then I'm gonna eat it up and then head to bed. I forgot the most important item of all, the pink titanium spoon. This thing's gonna keep you warm at night if the sleep system doesn't, so always make sure to have this with you and keep it inside your quilt or sleeping bag while you're going to bed. This is a really nice spot. Looking forward to just eating dinner, enjoying these views. I'll check in with you guys in the morning. Something I forgot to mention with my sleep system is this hood from Enlightened Equipment. This is the Tord Apex hood. Pretty much essential if you're going to be using quilts for very cold weather camping. What's nice about this is it's made with synthetic material, and because you're exhaling so much moisture of your breath, that kind of accumulates around your head. So it's good to have a synthetic hood for that. Down would start absorbing moisture a little bit more. It's kind of crazy. It's only 7 p.m. and it's already down to minus 25 degrees Celsius. So tonight could get pretty interesting and spicy. I'm hoping it doesn't get much colder than that. If it starts getting down to minus 30, I'm going to start getting uncomfortable. Anything less than that, it's going to be pretty dangerous. Good morning. It is finally starting to warm up. That was a pretty miserable sleep. And the reason last night was so uncomfortable is twofold. First of all, it got really cold. Even right now, it's minus 18 degrees Celsius in the morning time. Last night, it started approaching minus 30. I think it got down to about minus 28 degrees Celsius. So a lot colder than I thought it was going to get, even at the extreme end. And because of that, I didn't have enough gear in order to stay very comfortable. I ended up moving my foam pad to the top of the sleeping pad. Usually I like it underneath just for comfort, but it's a lot warmer when you put it on top of the sleeping pad. And that's where the weak point of the system really came into play. The X-Lite just isn't a warm enough sleeping pad for those kind of conditions. If I had the X-Therm, I probably would have been fine. If I wanted to use the X-Lite but supplement it with some more budget-friendly options and getting a second sleeping pad just for wintertime, I probably would have just had to stack more and more foam, which foam isn't the heaviest, but it's also quite bulky and a pain to carry up the mountain. I was nice and toasty up top, which is really good. That's partly because I did put on my down pants and my down jacket, so I did have some extra insulation. Usually I like to keep those as backup, but because I was losing so much heat to the ground, I put them on just to kind of try and mitigate that a little bit. And I mentioned you guys the video where I go over my camp clothes. There's a couple new ones that I picked up for this year. One of them is these down pants that I'm wearing. These are made by thru-hike. They're just a little bit loftier and warmer than the ones I had last year. And then I also picked up a down mid layer. So this is the Ultra Alpine by Patagonia. It's just a sweater. It's probably the lightest down sweater that I've ever encountered. There's no zippers. This is very minimal. Uses very high power fill, 7-denier fabric. So it's very lightweight, 150 grams for something that's extremely warm. And this is quickly becoming my favorite mid layer for when I'm around camp. Fleeces are really nice for mid layers. They're inexpensive. They do keep you warm. But compared to some of the fleeces that I have, this Patagonia down just keeps me probably 2 times as warm as those. So for me, the weight and then the warmth is definitely worth bringing this on the trip and the expense. I'm gonna be getting all packed up here soon. You may notice my pack. This is the Waymark light pack. So it's a 45-liter pack. I think I forget the exact volume, but it's a great pack for these kind of missions because it can hold a lot of stuff. It carries weight phenomenally. I didn't have a ton of weight on this trip, but if I did, I've carried up to 40 pounds in this and it's been very comfortable. The one thing that it's not great for is if you're on more technical winter trips, it doesn't have a ton of straps on there. So if I did need to take my skis and strap them to my pack for any sort of purpose, then I wouldn't be able to do that easily with this pack. But great for kind of easier, lightweight winter trips, and definitely one of my favorite packs for shoulder season in fall and springtime. The Ultralight performed pretty well last night. It snowed a little bit, so you can see a little bit of snow loading on there, not a ton. And it performed basically as well as I expected it to. It's not made for winter temperatures, but if you do need to use it in the wintertime, it's going to do pretty well. Nothing kind of snapped or broke as far as Dyneema working in the cold. I've heard Dyneema works pretty well in the cold, so that was expected. And the only thing that I'd really probably change about it is that the size is definitely not big enough for winter trips. I like having a bit more space in order to move around and store things while I'm in winter conditions, especially if I am changing inside my tent. As promised, go check out some really cool and innovative gear that I've discovered up in the corner there. A lot of gear really surprised me on this list, and I don't really often get surprised. Temperatures are forecast to get down below minus 40 degrees tonight here in the Canadian Rockies, and my goal is to sleep outside in a tent and not only survive, but be comfortable. I'm gonna be using my extreme winter camping sleep system. I've never used it in these temperatures before. Actually, this is the lowest I've ever camped outside before in my life. And because of that, I'm gonna be just a short distance away from my car. That way, if I do need to abort the mission, I can get to my car, warm up, and if needed, drive out to safety. I also have my Garmin InReach with me just in case my car doesn't start. I don't think I've ever tried to start my car at these temperatures before. This trip is quite dangerous, and I want to be mitigating that danger as much as possible. Before I get the system that I'm going to be using as a sleep system tonight in order to try and brave these minus 40 degrees temperatures, I'm going to be setting up my tent right over behind me here. I brought a hot tent setup. I'm going to be using a 3FUL titanium stove and then a 1 Tigris tent. I'm really hoping that I can get the stove and hot tent warm enough in order to keep me comfortable to hang out before I want to go to bed tonight, because I frankly don't want to be getting inside of my sleep system at 5 o'clock when temperatures are supposed to start really dropping. But we'll see. I've also never used a hot tent in these kind of temperatures. when I'm out on these really cold trips, I often get asked why I do it. Why do I go out and kind of expose myself to these really cold temperatures and what some people would probably consider type 2 fun, very uncomfortable scenarios and stuff that most people just wouldn't do. And to be honest, a lot of it is just all about getting outdoors. It doesn't matter whether I'm hiking, backpacking, skiing, snowshoeing, canoeing, and whether it's minus 30 or plus 30, getting outdoors is really recharges me. So whenever I get out here, it just does so much good things for my mental health and just my outlook on everything, and usually gives me good time to think and get things into perspective. I also really like to push my limits and boundaries, and winter camping and especially getting down into these really low temperatures allows me to do that. I can get out here and move the needle with regards to my backpacking skills and comfortability in different kind of scenarios. So those are the two reasons really why I get out here in these cold temperatures. Hopefully that answers your question. Let me know in the comments why you guys like to go winter camping, and if you don't go winter camping, why not? In order to stay warm while I'm setting up camp, I have a pretty warm clothing system. I'm wearing a merino wool toque, and then I have this synthetic fill parka from Decathlon. This is the warmest jacket I own. It has the fake fur hood in order to block wind and kind of create a bubble of warmth around your face. And then underneath this, because it's so warm, all I need is a merino wool shirt. So I have a merino wool long sleeve shirt that I'm gonna sleep in this as well. I'll go over my entire sleep system clothing as we talk about the sleep system later. And then I also have merino wool pants. And then you can see I'm wearing pants I get asked about all the time. These are the Outdoor Research Trailbreaker 2 pants. And I just have the merino wool underneath those. My legs are a little bit cold, so I probably could get away with a pair of fleece pants underneath these as well. I've got a few more things to set up inside of my tent, some comfort items that I'm gonna share with you guys. Then we'll get the sleep system going, and I'll share with you guys a little bit more about this trip and how I'm gonna try and stay warm down to minus 40 degrees tonight. It still seems kind of crazy to me. So I just did a temperature check. It's minus 30 right now. I'm gonna be using this thermometer inside of the hot tent just to track how warm it's getting inside. And then I have a Bluetooth thermometer that I have outside the tent here that is linked to my phone that I'm gonna track the temperature throughout the entire night, so I can tell you guys tomorrow morning how cold it actually got. As you can see, I brought my Helinox Chair Zero. There's a few other comfort items that I brought with me just to kind of make life a little bit more comfortable inside of the hot tent. This is the FlexTail Tiny Pump X. So this is what I use to inflate my sleeping pad in order to not get a whole bunch of warm air into it, because as soon as that warm air starts cooling off, the sleeping pad will start to deflate. So you don't want that, better to use a little pump. And what's nice about this pump is that it also has a light. So I can just hang this in the top of my tent, and then I have a little lantern for the course of the night. I don't need to have a headlamp on the entire time. And then one of my favorite things that I brought with me that's gonna be super useful, especially when the nights are really long, is this trekking pole that has a GoPro mount on it with a phone holder. So I can just put my phone right in there and then stick that into the ground, and then I can lay back in my chair and watch a movie or a TV show over the course of the night. Very nice to have. As you can see, I also have the hot tent. I chopped a whole bunch more wood. And what's really important when you're out on winter trips is a good meal. You want a good meal in order to stay warm. Eating before bed is kind of like putting fuel into the furnace. And for this trip, I brought with me another Wild Mountain Eats. So this is the black bean stew. Really looking forward to this. The last meal I had, the lentil curry, was delicious. So I'll put a link to their Instagram in the video description so you guys can go check them out. They're based in Calgary where I live, so really happy to support them and check out their products. And that brings us to the sleep system. This is gonna be the key thing tonight because I'm not gonna have the stove going all night. I don't wanna have to wake up and put wood into the stove, so I'm just gonna let it die down. So I need to stay warm at -40 with just my sleep system and clothes. And I've changed into the clothes I'm gonna be wearing tonight. On top, I'm wearing the same merino wool that I was wearing before. It's a 200 weight merino wool. And then I have this Patagonia Ultra Alpine down sweater. So this is only 150 grams, super warm. I'm gonna be wearing it to bed because I'm gonna need that extra little bit of layer. And then for my legs, I'm wearing 260 weight merino wool and then these down pants from Nature Hike. I'll put all this stuff in the video description so you guys go check it out. Right now on my feet, I'm wearing these Mech Expedition booties just to keep my feet nice and warm. But I have darn tough socks and then these Torrid Apex socks from Enlightened Equipment. So I just want my feet to be nice and toasty, so I'm gonna be wearing these Torrid socks to bed as well. It's a synthetic fill. So as my feet sweat and moisture is coming out of my foot, it's not gonna be affecting these as much as if they're down booties. So really like these. And let's get to the sleep system because that's what you guys are here for, right? So this is the same sleep system that I did an entire video on. It features this reflective mat on the bottom here, and then at the base of the sleeping pad system is this foam mat by Nemo, the switchback, and then I'm using the Thermarest X-Therm sleeping pad. This has an R value of 6.9. These three pads and mats combine to create a very solid base to the system. Usually the weakest part of a sleep system is that ground insulation. A lot of people, they'll just use their summer sleeping pad or something that doesn't have a high enough R value. I know at these really cold temperatures, I'm gonna need as much insulation for the ground as possible. And then on the head end, I have my Hike Ensure pillow here. This has a little bit of a foam layer on top, which helps insulate your head. And then the main piece of insulation for this entire system is the Thermarest Polar Ranger sleeping bag. This sleeping bag is rated to -30 and it has a whole bunch of features that I think make it very effective at cold temperatures. It has a snorkel at the head end here, so this wraps around your face and creates a pocket of air around your face. It's made of synthetic material, so you're not getting a whole bunch of moisture buildup. It is a down sleeping bag throughout the rest. And that has these armholes here too. So you can use those to vent heat out of your body if you're a little bit too warm. And sometimes that happens. You go to bed, it's -30, and then it gets down to -40 over the course of the night. And then on top of the Polar Ranger, I have another layer. This is a synthetic quilt from Enlightened Equipment. This is the Revelation Apex, and it's gonna attach to the sleeping pad with these buckles right here. So that's gonna eliminate drafts over the course of the night by keeping the quilt nice and snug to the sleeping pad. And this is gonna provide a couple benefits for me. It's gonna add extra insulation, and then it's also gonna manage moisture and condensation a lot better than the down that's in the sleeping bag. The outer quilt moves the dew point of condensation out further away from the down of the sleeping bag, so any sort of condensation is going to happen inside the synthetic material of the quilt, and the quilt synthetic material is going to handle that a lot better. I'm gonna have my dinner, hang out, and I'm gonna check in with you guys tomorrow morning. I'll let you know how cold it got last night and how comfortable I was or uncomfortable over the course of the evening. Good morning. It got cold last night, but before we get into that, I want to get the hot tent going, the stove going, because it's still really cold. I want to get some water boiling so I can have a nice hot coffee and then just kind of warm up inside the tent here, and I'll tell you about how the night went and how the sleep system performed. So I left some water in the pot here. It froze overnight, obviously. So we'll put that on there and get it melting. I've recommended this Nalgene koozie before, and I've used it down to -20 degrees Celsius, and it's kept the water inside from freezing, but with the temperatures that we got down to last night, the water froze inside of here. So I don't have any water that isn't frozen right now. The temperature this morning isn't that bad, -15 degrees Celsius, which is just above 0 degrees Fahrenheit for you Americans out there. Really nice having the thermometer for doing all the conversions for you guys on this trip. I'm gonna get things cleaned up a little bit in here, and then I'll pull my sleep system outside the tent and we can talk about how it performed last night and what those temperatures got down to. Before I get a ton of comments as we talk about the sleep system, I know the X-Therm is upside down. Doesn't really make a big difference. The part that I have facing up is a 70 denier, whereas the bottom is a 30 denier, and that's the only difference between how the sleeping pad's gonna perform. But overall, I slept pretty warm last night. Temperatures steadily dropped from -30 to -40 and topped out at -50 degrees Celsius. I recorded it all on my Bluetooth thermometer, and that's the coldest temperature I've ever slept outside at by a good 15 degrees. I was toasty warm. At times I thought I was gonna actually get too warm. I was wearing exactly what I have on right now, my down sweater and pants, and then merino wool base layers, and then my torrid socks. And yeah, everything performed great. I think a big factor last night was moisture management. I had a lot of condensation, frozen condensation accumulating on my quilt, as well as the snorkel of the sleeping bag. So having the synthetic quilt and then the snorkel really kind of took this sleep system to the next level. I'm not sure it'd perform as well if I was using a system like 2 down sleeping bags stuffed inside of each other. I was a little bit worried about the ground temperature, especially after my last trip where I tried to go down to -30 degrees while also being ultralight. But my ground insulation was perfect. I did not feel the ground at all. Really, I just wasn't cold at all last night, which was awesome. Definitely pushed my limits, and it was cool to see that I can get out in extreme winter conditions and still survive and be comfortable, especially with the hot tent that we have behind me here. If you want to see that trip where I try to use my summer ultralight gear to winter camp, then go check it out right up in the corner there. It doesn't quite go as planned, and I definitely learned some lessons on that trip.